Holy shit, guys. Welcome to the Fast Life Podcast.
The very first one.
The first episode. Man, I appreciate you tuning in and checking this out. Hopefully, you'll like it as much as we like doing this stuff, man. This stuff is great.
Super fun.
My name's Jace. This is my brother.
I'm Jesse.
Day to day, we work at the shop, the Fast Life Garage, where we do a lot of bike stuff and paint, mainly paint and stuff like that, mainly. A couple months back, man, we were just hanging out in the garage and kicking these ideas back and forth and decided, intoxicatingly decided that we should jump into this whole market and use some of the influence. I wouldn't even say influence. Use some of the opportunities that we have had to meet some of these crazy, awesome, talented people in this industry, from bike builders to tradesmen to custom painters and all sorts of motherfuckers in between. You know what I'm saying?
Not to mention just the fact that it's fun to do.
It is fun.
We like talking anyways, so.
For sure, we do. Me personally, if you know me, or like, would it be me? If you personally know me.
Yeah, there you go.
There we go.
You're working on it.
Yeah, I'm getting better at this shit. I think. Probably not, but I think.
It's always awkward at first.
Super is. But if you know me personally, you know that I love to talk, and that could be annoying or not, depending on if you're as drunk as I am when I'm talking all this shit that I do. It really just depends. I guess we kind of got inspired by this whole podcast medium through my good friend Danger Dan, who has a podcast, Danger Dan's Talk Shop. He asked me to be on his plug. He asked me to be on his podcast earlier last year, and I was super nervous. It was super. The whole drive over to his shop, man. I was just like,
what am I gonna say? What am I gonna talk about? What am I gonna do?
It was just a nervous feeling of like.
And now that's what we put everybody else through.
Exactly, and but I mean it was super fun and super cool, and I had such a great feedback of all the people that listened to it, and.
Yeah, he's got a super comfortable personality. Like, he's easy to get around and
exactly.
And, talk to.
But being on his podcast, it opened my mind up to the world of podcasting. So I was like, fuck it, man. I work in a shop all day. There's only so much me and my brother want to talk about before we start, cussing each other out every day. So, we wear our headphones or we work or we have the main radio playing. And, man, we just start listening to all kinds of different podcasts and getting inspired by all these great ones like the Joe Rogan and the Dan Carlins and all these amazing guys out there that can just literally fill your whole workday up with great information or great theories.
Inspiration.
There you go. The
word placement.
We're gonna be down in what is it? The Dallas IMS show, February 2nd?
2nd and 4th.
2nd through the 4th, actually. It's a Friday through a Saturday deal.
Yeah.
Here locally in Dallas. And I mean, if you're anywhere in the area, come. You got to check this place out. It's going to be fun. It's going to be great. I would love to meet anybody that I can, man. If you're going to come out, find me. I'm sure I'll have a shirt that says Fast Life Garage on it or something.
We've got shirts to sell, too.
Yeah,
plug.
But man, come out. Shoot me on Instagram. Tell me you're here. I want to meet you. I want to talk to as many people, meet as many people as I can. We're gonna have our bikes out there. We'll have our Gold FXR, and then we're currently trying to wrap up the recent 2017 bagger that we just picked up. Trying to go more of a performance vibe on that bike instead of the big wheel thing, and. I should have that one out there and done, and man, I hope you can check it out. I hope you like it, man. But yeah, come out to the show, check us out. I also think my good friend Mark from Texas Performance Motorcycles will be up here too. He should have his pink FXR.
Mm-hmm.
Mark's a solid dude, man. He's a great friend of mine. I met this dude at a gas station on the way to Phoenix one day. Crazy story. You'll probably hear about it one day on one of these podcasts. But I love to do the death. He does all the mechanic work and the performance dialing in of our personal bikes and pretty much all the bikes that I can send him or refer people to. If you can't make it out, you can't meet him, you can't meet me or my brother Jesse.
I'm not that cool.
You can find Mark on Instagram at Texas Performance MC. His shop's down in Cedar Park, Texas, which is northwest of Austin. Check him out. fucking just, he's a good dude, man. Even if you just go in and meet the guy. He's got all the cool guy shit in his shop, too, if you want to get your bike dialed in.
Also, he's got Dixon flannels, which I'm wearing when I bought from him right now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, he's got everything in stock, man. You really can't beat that whole deal.
Yeah, we should just, jump straight into what everybody's here for. Who are we talking to? What's going on? What are they gonna have? What are they gonna listen to?
Well, as our first podcast, I was really wanting to try to get someone on here that I think could make us a lot cooler than we are or sound better than we are.
That's why I didn't talk.
Yeah, exactly. No, but man, my good friend Scott Holbrooks, he's the product brand marketing manager. He's the guy in charge of everything you see on Instagram and stuff like that for Simpson MotorCycle helmets.
I think he said it was him and two other dudes.
Yeah, there's the motorcycle division is only 3 guys, but he handles the social media, and you'll usually catch him at a lot of the events across the United States. Mm-hmm. He's originally from Ohio, but Simpson headquarters is down in New Braunfels, where we were able to catch up with him and sit down for a good amount of time and just get our fucking minds blown by this dude's badassery.
Badassery?
Yeah, that's probably the best way to put it.
I think that's the first cool word you've made up in your life.
I think I saw it somewhere else, so I didn't make that shit up at all.
Definitely been around.
But yeah, so check him out. Simpson MotorCycle helmets on Instagram. You really can't.
Yeah, I mean, you probably already check him out.
Yeah, for sure. He's way cooler than we are. So, like I said, check him out. Check us out. We're the Fast Life Garage. If you want to see Jesse's page, he's Fast
Life Jesse, but it's Fast_Life_Jesse. Super complicated.
Yeah, I guess there's another Fast Life Jesse out there.
No, I'm the only one. I just didn't want it all run together because I like grammar. So.
Look at you.
Anyway,
man. But hey, check this out.
Without further ado,
Scott Holbrooks, everybody.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
Fast Life Podcast. There we go. We're live.
What's up, everybody? We're here with Scott Holbrook from Simpson MotorCycle Helmets. Down here in New Braunfels, right?
New Braunfels, Texas.
Yeah, there you
absolutely.
Go. And you just flew in from what part of Ohio are you from?
I'm originally from Columbus, Ohio, but I've lived all over working in the motorcycle business. And I was in Vegas. I had a little project at CES, and I kind of flew into Texas, did Houston Supercross for the night, visited some dealers over in Houston, and then drove over to New Braunfels.
There you go. So, I guess we can just kind of slide into this whole deal and just get a little bit more comfortable. You've been in the motorcycle industry for quite a while, right?
Yeah, so I, soon after school, I kind of got started and I had a lot of different positions. I worked at dealerships and worked as a buyer for a couple of the big distributors, product development guy for a couple of different helmet companies, and just kind of, I don't know if I'm living the dream, but I certainly am enjoying the motorcycle business and riding for most of my adult life. So I really haven't had any other kind of jobs, so that's kind of been cool.
Yeah, I'm super jealous. I wish I'm trying to get to that corporate level of life.
Never had a corporate or retail type job.
Yeah, I'd probably get fired for not being at work on time in the morning. So.
Oh, it's
11 o'clock. Where you been?
It's a lot of fun. A lot of travel. I had to pay a lot of dues when I was younger. I think people make it out to be a lot more glamorous than it is. Slogging through airports and is not always fun. So
I think for the person that doesn't go in the airport much, it seems like the coolest thing in the world. Just feeling, I think you get a sense of feeling cool and important when you're at an airport and you're doing it for work.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
Until they're shoving you on there like cattle, and they're stacking you in there like firewood, and then you're like, come on, guys, so it's I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's my spot in life, and my family hasn't always accepted exactly what I do. They think it's kind of crazy and dangerous from time to time, but for the most part, I've absolutely loved it. I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Yeah, I mean, you've made it this far, so it can't be too bad.
Right.
Yeah, no turning back now. You're
right.
gonna work at IKEA.
No way. I'm gonna. I might have another 25 years in me or something like that, and then I'm done,
Yeah.
right off into the sunset.
So you have a bike right now, right? What are you riding currently?
So I have a 16 Road Glide, probably one of the last of the 103s. I think I bought it, and I turned around like a week later. They came out with the Milwaukee 8. So
We just had that
we
conversation.
were just having a conversation
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
But it's okay. I bought it. It was a milestone in my life, and I sort of bought it for myself on my birthday.
There you
And
go.
it was a birthday present to myself. And I have a lot of other motorcycles. I kind of have it's not a huge collection, but I have a lot of motorcycles. Lots of old Japanese motorcycles.
Yeah.
Lots of dual sports.
But you have a background in a lot of different types of bikes, not just the Harley market, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, from motocross and dirt bikes and doing product development work for that, to road racing bikes and everything in between. So I kind of have, I just have an affinity for everything with two wheels and a motor. So
I think I'm developing that same type of idea. Like nowadays, when I see a bike, I'm more keen on the idea of like I just want to fucking ride that thing.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely.
Instead of I'm just strictly this kind of bike or this kind of bike or this genre or what?
Right.
Is it genre or is it just scene?
No, it's genre. Like
Yeah.
it's a genre of bike.
Right. So yeah, I mean, this past summer, the Road Glide is fantastic on the highway and for longer trips. I mean, I just love it. It's my first bike that has cruise control. It's just like it's amazing.
that
I
like?
use it too.
Right?
I love it.
It's amazing. So, but this summer I was traveling a lot and I didn't have a lot of time for longer trips. And I pulled out an 81 SR500 Yamaha, which is an air-cooled, carbureted, kickstart, single cylinder. And,
Hell yeah.
it doesn't have much in the way of brakes. It doesn't have much in the way of suspension. And I'm riding on the back roads around my house, and, it kind of keeps you, I don't know, there's a purity to this old school bike that it's not good at anything, but it keeps you, it's not, but it keeps you kind of going slow. It keeps you from going too deep in the corners and getting on it very hard. And
Keeps you on your toes.
Right,
Yeah.
absolutely. And it keeps you on your toes, but you're only going 60 miles an hour, right? So it's a lot of fun. So I think, whether you're a kid starting, even when I was on 5 years old and you're on a 20-inch bicycle, it's that freedom you feel, and continuing that freedom, into adulthood, all the way up to retirement or the end of your riding, and just enjoying each bike for what it is.
Yeah.
You don't need to go 150 miles an hour. You don't need to have chrome everything. It's kind of like just enjoying your ride for what it is.
There's every style of bike
That's
and
how I would take it.
everything has an experience. Like you can be on a Road King and get a different experience than if you were driving a Road Glide.
Right.
So I try to tell everybody, if you get a chance to ride a bike, just do it. Just see what it's like, see what it feels like.
Absolutely.
I do like the fact that Harley though has this more culture based, like feel like you're a part of this bigger universe of being, as opposed to like when I rode sport bikes, I didn't really have that same kind of connection feeling with everybody else. But I could have just been an asshole the whole time, so I don't really know.
I know there's definitely when you buy an HD, you've bought into a club.
Mm-hmm.
And I worked in the motorcycle business and rode for a very, very long time before I bought my first HD, and it was kind of an eye opener. I knew that was happening, and that was what most people experienced. But seeing it firsthand was a little different. There's nothing wrong with the Japanese cruisers and some of the other brands of cruisers. They're great. They're fantastic motorcycles. But the authenticity of having the HD and having people, I don't know what it is. It's they've done a great job at marketing that brand and the history. Sure. They really have. I mean, it's fantastic. Yeah. And there's a lot of people who, if they get into the sport and they buy a bike, and to them, by all intents and purposes, it's a V-twin. Mm-hmm. It's cool looking. It's got chrome on it. The badge on the tank is a little different, and they go to their local bike night, and they feel somewhat ostracized. They don't get it. If they're new to the sport. And I hate that kind of maybe chases some people away. And whenever I have somebody that approaches me and they say, hey, I want to get into bikes or something, it depends on the kind of riding, because there's all different types of riding. But if they really want to if they want to be a cruiser rider and they love the social aspect, they want to go to bike nights and they want to ride with other people, I tell them that, in my opinion, they're way better off to buy, an HD, even if it's a 25-year-old Sportster,
Exactly.
because they're going to go and they're going to get immediately this acceptance, and that's going to help. That's going to help them stick with motorcycling, and that's going to help them.
They're going to have a great experience with
Absolutely.
it. Instead of feeling like they have to prove themselves.
Absolutely.
I completely agree.
I mean, if you show up on a Sportster, though, you do have to prove yourself. So
a little bit, and I get that.
I've showed up on a Sportster, and I've seen it got some looks.
I get that. But I had a friend once that wanted to get into bikes, and we were coworkers, and he bought a very, very powerful, awesome cruiser that was not an HD, and he spent a lot of money really fixing it up. And he would go to bike nights, and he just didn't quite click. And it's so funny. His elderly father, that was not into bikes at all, bought an old, I want to say it was a 95th anniversary Sportster, and comes into bike nights and immediately has a million questions about it.
Yeah.
And fast forward like 2 years later, and the dad had bought a bagger, had joined the Christian Motorcyclist Association, and was really, really involved from a social aspect. And the son lost interest in the bike. The next year the battery was dead. The next year somebody had to get it running again, and then he sold it.
Yeah, he had a bad experience,
Right,
man.
right.
And it is sad, because the metric bikes are quality bikes.
Absolutely.
They are. But it's almost like the bike that if you get it, you summed it up perfectly. I couldn't have put that any better, because that's exactly what happens. I've seen it happen over the course of so many times. So much. When I grew up in sport bikes, a lot of people wanted to jump on cruisers, but they were trying to be different, or they were trying to stay loyal to the Japanese motorcycles, and they didn't want to jump on the Harleys. And either A, they did jump on the metric bikes, and they ended up spending all this time and money, and they ended up coming to Harley anyway.
Right.
And it's just one of those deals, man. I try to tell people, like, hey, let's just skip the bullshit. Let's go right to the...
Right. But, there's exceptions to all that, because I know guys that are totally into the chopper scene, or bobbers, or doing scramblers, and they're working with XS 650s.
Yeah. And
they're an incredible platform to build from.
I feel like there's a much bigger scene of that old CB 500s and that whole cafe scene.
Yeah.
They have a culture to it where you are accepted.
Absolutely.
But it's almost like newer cars. Like there's no clubs for 2003 Saturns. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Absolutely.
So it's the same thing with a 2003, Yamaha, whatever. It's not gonna have you'll probably find a forum for it.
Sure.
But you're talking about over the course of the United States, maybe 5,000 people that are into this bike.
Right.
So.
Yeah. It's a mixed bag. If you think about the absolute numbers of riders, so we've got 300 million people in the United States, and somewhere between 8 and 10 million riders. That's pretty,
Yeah, what was the percentage you told me about this?
It's a little over 3%. So it's kind of crazy if you think that only 3% out of 100 people ride a motorcycle, because they're so visual. They're out there on the highway, you see them. When the weather's great, you see a ton of them, and people have it in their head there's a lot more motorcyclists than there really are. So the crazy statistic I like to talk about is about 5% of Americans truly believe they've seen a UFO, and only about 3 ride a motorcycle. So if you think about how crazy that is, more people believe they've seen a UFO than have ridden a motor or are motorcycle riders.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
That's such a wild thought. You know what I mean?
Right.
Because even being in this thing, you feel like there's a massive amount of people nationwide that are on this.
Right.
But compared to the people that are buying iPhones every day, we're not even in the market of that.
Exactly.
So
and it gets tough for manufacturers. When they're bringing out new models, like HD just had a complete model revamp. It's really tough to do market research, and you've got there's a lot of brands out there. Even if you look back in the mid 80s, there was only a handful of motorcycle brands, and now we've got so many different people making bikes, and there's so many different types of riding, and then you throw in you know, one of the biggest growing segments of riders as women riders. You
Yeah.
know, not as passengers but as riders, and that's exciting. But then they kind of need bikes that are a little different than men.
Mm-hmm.
They definitely need gear that's a little different than men, and so that again that fragments the market that much more
Mm-hmm.
to where it's that more difficult to
Yeah.
you know do product development, whether it's gear or bikes
Mm-hmm.
or target marketing. You know, who do you want your message to go to?
That's completely true. I mean, think about how much work Harley has to put into coming up with a bike for every genre or every style of riding and every facet that there is, and you know, and then they come out and the only thing that was fun about it was all the memes they made about the different bikes.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we think you know it, and
I think they're amazing bikes. I just like we were just talking about. I'm just waiting for some really cool dude to ride the bike to inspire me to want to go
Right.
buy one. You know.
I think the biggest mistake, and I don't want to be critical of the motor company. They might send a hitman after me or something. But I think the biggest mistake in my opinion is the bike is not a Softail. So it's a completely different frame. It's completely different everything. But somehow they felt they had so much money invested in the Softail name that they decided to keep it. And had I been in charge, I would have said, "Look, it's a new bike. We're going to come up with something completely different name," because the Softail for a while has been the redheaded stepchild,
Exactly.
and nobody's that excited have been that excited about Softails for a while. So I think they should have. It was a mistake not to call it something else.
I completely agree.
The bikes themselves are great. You know?
I mean, if you look at
I've
the way-
heard that they're really awesome.
The suspension is even though from the outside looking in it looks a lot more similar to the traditional Softail, it's a completely different setup. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's basically a monoshock frame.
Exactly. It's like a sport bike. So
Right, absolutely.
you know, I test rode one and they were great. You know, it had forward controls and had super low bars, so the riding position wasn't as ideal for the type of riding I like to do.
Right.
But so much power in that motor, so much like just bottled up power that you know with an air cleaner and exhaust and you know a little bit more comfortable setup as far as mid controls or the bars that I liked, and I felt like that's a bike that I can rip around town and just be a complete dick, or I can jump on and throw a bag on the back and ride it across country. You know what I mean? It's a comfortable bike. So
And I think as long as I think there's some suspension people that have already got some solutions.
yeah,
So the guys that are riding them hard, you know, that are really getting on them, as long as they can get the back end jacked up, so they steepen up the steering head.
Yeah, I saw
and make them handle pretty quick.
I saw a recent one. I think it was on Instagram. Someone out in Europe dialed one in pretty nice tall rear shocks, got it off the ground, and it actually looks very good.
Right.
You know, I think that, like I said, slowly but surely, people are starting to dive in and put a little bit of money in these bikes, and once they do, and someone actually goes tenfold into one of these things, I think that it's going to open up that market for forever. I mean, here's the deal: those are the cards that we're playing with for the next 10 to 15 years.
Right. Absolutely.
So we can only bitch about it so long before we just got to accept it and start trying to make these things as cool as possible.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely. Yeah.
that's
I
what we're
agree.
dealing with.
I agree. So besides that, I know we talked about it a little bit earlier. You think the performance bagger is one of the?
I'm saying I think. I'm saying I hope.
Right.
I really enjoy it. Coming from big wheel baggers and then going on to Dynas and FXRs, I fell in love with the idea of performance motorcycles.
Right.
Did I miss the comfort of my bagger? Absolutely. Did I miss certain aspects like a nice radio and things like yes? So I'm super excited about it because I can ride aggressively on these bikes, which those baggers handle amazingly.
Sure.
You know, they really do. I mean, am I going to get my knee on the ground? No, but I can't do that anyway. That's way beyond my ability.
Right.
But now I have a bike, especially the one I got with the M8 motor in there. I have a bike with just a great amount of power, comfortable. My wife can ride with me or not, hopefully.
Right.
And I'm excited to see it. We're in the process of building it right now. I think the first trip I'm gonna take on is gonna be to Daytona, and I'm super pumped about going there. You know, I can't wait to see how this. I'm already envisioning myself riding this bike, and I'm just super excited about getting it there. But I'm hoping that people will catch on. I feel like with the big wheel bagger when it first came on, a lot of people, there was some good things about it. Some people had great experiences, and that's what it boils down to. When you build a bike, It's about the experience that you get of building it.
Sure.
If you spend all this money on a bike and everything's falling apart and breaking, your battery's always dead, the air ride's always out, that's a shitty experience.
Right.
You're going to be less likely to want to dump money into another bike or another project.
Right.
And I think that with the performance side of it, you're really only going to be putting money in the bike to make it aesthetically better in every way possible.
Sure.
You know, the suspension's going to be better. The motor's going to be opened up.
Right.
You know, you're not putting things on it that are really going to have you sit on the side of the road like air ride.
Right.
Or your LED kit that's draining your battery that you left on at Buffalo Wild Wings one
Right. Right.
So I'm praying for it. I don't know if it'll be as huge of a market as the big wheel bagger stuff was, but I just hope that people just try it, have a good time, you know, ride these bikes and experience it and have a good experience. And then if something bigger, better comes along, then they're ready to spend money in that market again, you know?
Sure. So I think, you know, the tough thing about the big wheel bagger, I talked to a lot of those guys, and, you know, in a weird sort of way, you know, it's still a solid platform. I think those bikes have handled pretty well since about 2010 frame change, I think.
Yeah.
But when they do a big wheel bagger, you kind of, in a way, you know, you're putting a big giant gyroscope on the front, and you're kind of limiting the performance. You're certainly not enhancing the performance the bike came with. And I talked to a lot of those guys, and they might put an exhaust on, they might put a tuner on it or something like that, but otherwise the bike's pretty stock.
Yeah,
it just has a look.
Yeah.
And so I think going the opposite way, and you know, building a bagger that has lighter wheels, way better suspension. And if we're going to get some of the guys that come off of sport bikes or even come off of Dynas, and they're going to get a bagger, I think they're going to demand that it's a fast bike that goes around turns and can stop.
Yeah.
And that's where the performance bagger thing comes in. I mean, whether or not you get an awesome paint job on it, but you're probably going to have some, you know, badass upside down forks, some great big radial mount brakes. I mean, it's going to, you know, that stuff's going to be important to you.
Exactly, and I think that's the way that I think people should do it. I think it should hold some ground for the next couple of years. And you got to understand, like, there are a lot of people that get into bikes during a scene or during a type of bike's popularity,
right?
And they never leave that scene. Like, you can still see those dudes. They're still on the TV choppers from the early 2000s. You know, they got the armbands and the fairly you know, vests on. I mean, they're still there, and they're living still in that 2003 time, and that. I think that shit's cool, you know. I'm like, hey, you know, good for you, dude.
Right.
You know, but there's gonna be people. I mean, big wheel baggers are never gonna go away. It ain't like one day they're not gonna be here.
Yeah.
You know. But like I said, I think that as the time went along, I think that a lot of shops started doing things cheaper, and with cheaper work comes less quality of work, which means that those people that paid less money are gonna have not the experience that they want.
Right.
And so it's going to kind of dampen the market down, and then that it's going to kill it. Like if you're a premium bike builder, and you're having customers where you're used to selling bike builds at this price, and now because the market's so saturated with your mom and pop shops, just like the chopper market did, you know, 10, 12 years ago.
Right.
Now these people are competing where they're, you know, you were building this bike for $50,000, and now this dude's doing it for $12,000. Like, why would you're not even in the same arena anymore?
Right.
Why? Like, they're gonna move on to the next thing that's gonna be challenging for them to build, exciting, and that they feel like they can give a customer a great experience. That's what the top builders are gonna do.
Right.
And then the guys that are just down there, just, you know, scraping by, just doing whatever they can to make a dollar. And,
bottom feeders.
yeah, the eBay shoppers and stuff like that. Those are the guys that, you know, they're gonna make some money. There's always gonna be money in it, but it's just eventually it's not gonna be that cool anymore. And eventually, people are gonna, you know.
Right. I mean, there are people who banked on, you know, fat tire choppers. You know, there's a whole lot of those out there, and you know, up where I live, sometimes people are buying those things just for the engine and throwing the rest of it away.
Yeah, get that engine, get that old Evo engine. It's probably a 124 S&S, and throw away that. You know, you buy the bike for $5,000, and that's the motor, and you get a Baker 6 or something on there, and you throw in the FXR or some shit, and you got you a killer.
Absolutely. I mean, we see that happening, and you know, there's some of those bikes that will get put back in garages, and there'll be a time warp, and everything's cyclical. And so what will happen is we'll see those bikes pop up in another 25 years.
I agree. 100%.
And it'll be really cool to see one that's like period correct. Because right now, period correct from
all billet shit
2003. Yeah, all billet everything, and like one of the paint jobs that's like rocks or something, you know, and but you see that now. You go to Born Free, and you know some of the most expensive motorcycles are stuff was a panhead that's been pulled out of a barn that was turned into a chopper in the late 60s, early 70s, and it's got a fogged frame paint job that's all molded into the tank and things, and you know it's a little beat up, it's a little harsh, but it's authentic, and you know it's pulled out and just gotten back on the road. And
for me, that's what I love about just everything that has to do with the Harley Davidson bikes. Even Indians are the same way. I think they're pretty cool fucking bikes too, but there's always a scene for a particular Harley. I guarantee you obviously there's a huge FXR market, there's a huge Dyna market. There's still a decent sized softail market, you know? There's still a lot of people. Those fish-tailed out, engraved up, candy painted bikes, those softails are fucking sick.
Right.
And when this TV show comes out, it's probably super racist, but I'm just assuming that it's going to be, you know, some softails.
Yeah, Cholo bikes.
It's just going to...
I'll probably want one after I watch it.
Yeah.
You know, so it's just going to... And it's good. And I always tell people, you know, I hear people, you know, they bash on Sons of Anarchy. They call the Dynas the Sons of Anarchy bikes. I'm like... That show might have single-handedly saved Harley Davidson from crashing about 10 years ago by getting all these kids into... I mean, I grew up with nothing. If you were under 30, you rode sport bikes when I was younger.
Right.
And now I'm amazed at how many, 16, 17, 18, 20-year-old kids are on Harleys.
Right.
I grew up with Harley was a grown man's bike.
Right.
You know?
Right.
So it's awesome to see a change like that.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's...
Sure, everybody thinks that way, though.
You know, maybe not. I mean, there's some guys that probably don't like the TV show, or it was super gay, or, you know, the show was entertainment, right?
Right, and it was the same thing with even Orange County Choppers. You know, there were people, you know, if you were really into bikes, that whole thing, along with the fake drama, was really, really hard to watch. But somehow that inspired a lot of people as well.
I was inspired to be in this industry because I used to watch Monster Garage and Jesse James.
Right.
Straight the fuck up.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know?
And so you have that, and then you have this other medium that I think has helped a great deal with builders to get the start. And when I was a kid and we wanted to build a cafe racer or something like that, you had to find some grizzled old guy that was an old racer, and he would teach you how to do this and teach you how to do that if he took a liking to you.
Yeah.
And that kind of sucked, and it was tough, and it was things kind of were made tight and geographically locked down. Mm-hmm. Now, if you want to know how to turn an old CB750 into a cafe racer, you can do a couple of YouTube tutorials from around the world, and all of a sudden the guy in Iowa in the middle of nowhere can do some pretty amazing builds to getting inspired by somebody on the other side of the world.
And that's 100%. That's exactly what's great about now and I think all it's done is made the level of everything so much bigger. I mean, when I went to high school, the internet was just coming out.
Sure.
I didn't hear shit about airbrushing and the like custom paint. You know, if I wasn't looking in lowrider magazines or old hot bike magazines back in the late 90s, as a 18-year-old kid that's more concerned about chicks than anything, then I would have never... I feel like if I would have been exposed to that because of things like Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, then I feel like I could have maybe been inspired to go down this path that I'm on way earlier in my life.
Sure.
So I think I'm almost jealous. I'm hating on the fact that all these kids have so much available knowledge right there.
A lot of people don't do anything with it.
That's true too, but without question. I mean, I think that might be one of the problems as people get mired down in the choices. There's so much.
Yeah, that's a huge. I think that is a huge issue. Honestly, it's like there's too many options. There's too much you can do, and it overwhelms a lot of people.
Right.
I guess I can completely agree, because when I started looking at like certain pages like van life on Instagram, all of a sudden now I just want to get out of my house and go drive a van all over the country. And
right.
do shit like that. I'm like, fuck, I really want to do that. Like that's something now I have to do before I die. So it's completely killing responsibility is what it's doing.
Yeah, that's probably what it's doing for a lot of people, because they just see all this cool shit that everybody else is doing. They don't want to work towards it. They don't understand that you need to do that, and they're just like, oh, this guy just quit his job, bought a van, and was out. Like they just think it was that easy. You know what I mean? And it's not.
I think people do get mired down in just how much different options there are, and I think it is funny that we, with social media connecting all of us, I don't care how strange your obsession is. There's ways to hook up with people in the rest of the world.
There
might be 10 of you that pray to a cactus, but you can find those other 9 and hook up with them, right?
Just one cactus, though, right?
Right, just one cactus, right? So, I mean, that's kind of the beauty of social media, and obviously it has some drawbacks, but that's the funny thing is that, you can find, no matter what your twist is, you can find a group of other people who have that exact same twist. So.
And then, not only that, but if it's a large enough group, you can almost get lost in the idea that is the world, and you think everybody's into that.
No doubt.
Like the flat world.
Yeah, you do that too. You're like, bikes, and you don't realize there's a billion people out there who don't care about bikes at all. You know what I'm saying?
I mean,
and that's what I mean is it's like you can get so wrapped up in your life in that little cult that you think that you surround yourself with all of that, and you think that's it. You know what I mean?
And that's completely the truth. I'm one of those dudes that I have to completely immerse myself in the idea of what I do, because I feel like if I'm giving it all my attention, then I feel like I'm giving it the best of me, as opposed to if I'm only halfway I'm kind of into bikes, but you know what? Cowboys are playing this weekend. No, I'm not. I appreciate sports and I'll watch the important things, but the bike is my life, and honestly, everything great in my life other than my kids and my wife has come from motorcycles.
Right.
And if it wasn't for, if it wasn't for getting a bullshit job, 15 years ago, I would have not have been able to do all the shit that I'm proud of in my life. You know what I mean? I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you.
I mean, Jesse makes a great point that I think that we do get too wrapped up, and there's a lot of guys that are into bikes, and there's certainly in America there's some people who, bikes are just another hobby. It's like their boat or this or that, or their season tickets to their college games or whatever. But there's a lot of us like you and I that I don't have a man cave. I have a man house. I have motorcycles. I have motorcycles inside my house. In the living room is motorcycles on display, and it's just one of those things. And it's hard when you start talking to people, and I'm drugged to a regular party, and
these
guys don't ride.
I can't find.
That's how I felt at SEMA.
I hate. Yeah, I mean, obviously we're around some car people from time to time, and I feel real out of place. I mean, I hate to say it, I'm a very one-dimensional person. I like motorcycles.
Right.
Now I like a variety of motorcycles. Like I said before, it's as long as it's a bike, I like certain brands, but I'm not crazy about it. I like everybody who rides. I like all the bikes they ride. It's just, I love it.
There's nothing wrong with that. You just never want to allow yourself to get too wrapped up in thinking that that's the entire universe.
Right.
See, what happens,
you close yourself off from a lot of other opportunities or possibilities.
Like a wife or a girlfriend.
Exactly.
You don't need one of those.
Yeah.
Right.
No, so for me, I'll be I'll be like, you know what, I've motorcycled out this week, and I'll try to check out for the weekend with the wife or just anything, right? And then the moment I get on Instagram, I'll see someone like Rusty Butcher just doing some cool shit, or I'll see, Schultz painting some badass stuff, or I'll see all these really awesome people doing awesome things in motorcycles while I'm doing nothing at the moment.
Right.
And then I get mad at myself. I'm like, man, why the fuck am I sitting here doing nothing when I could be out here constantly fueling, or you know what I mean? So I look at all the stuff on Instagram as inspiration and fuel, and then next thing you know, you get so wrapped up in it, like he was saying, that you don't realize, you forget to go to do this. My wife, she's the best, but it's kind of known, we don't take vacations in our house to anything that's not motorcycle related.
Right.
I feel like maybe when I'm in my late 40s or early 50s, I'll be able to have that luxury of saying, hey, let's go to Puerto Rico, or Jamaica. But for now, if I can take off a week off of work, it has to be something, A, that I love to do, which is motorcycles,
right,
and B, that can promote and benefit the business in which I'm promoting.
Absolutely.
Which is the Fast Life Garage.
I think that's just like a lucky thing for you.
Well, it's about
Like,
it's about investing.
You're
in,
lucky as hell. Like, you just get to go ride, and it also supports your business. A lot of people
Well,
make a huge sacrifice in their life just to go do something
Well,
like
yeah,
that.
but they, I'm
think that's
selling the
something-
seeds of uncertainty.
Exactly.
I didn't go to college and do the corporate thing. I'm
Yeah.
And I think that for a lot of people, that's, they can be really envious of us because, I'm not looking for the work day to end so I can run off and do my hobby. I live my hobby.
Yeah.
And so, I'm happiest when I'm working and when I'm around the people that are collaborators and clients and just riding buddies. I mean, those are my folks. And I'm not that guy that's, I feel bad for people who, they might be a lot more successful monetarily than me, and they might be wildly wealthy because they've decided to do this or that for a career. But at the end of the day, a lot of those guys are waiting for that clock to strike 5 o'clock so they can get out of there and leave. And I might be waiting for the clock to strike 5, but it's so I can jump on a bike and kind of continue what I do during the day.
Exactly.
So yeah.
I don't know, man. It's always, of course, even what you do and what I do, it from the outside looking at it does probably appeal very nice. I mean, we have our stress.
Right, sure.
We have our quotas more or less that we have to reach, and and the one thing I try to explain to a lot of people is that you do have a benefit when you do clock out at 5, is that you get to clock out at 5.
Yeah, as opposed to like running a shop or something.
Yeah, with us, we work till X amount till we're allowed, till the circumstances of the work allow us to leave.
Right.
And then it's marketing time.
Right. Yeah.
Then it's, try to fit in. It might be marketing time to go to bike night. It might be marketing time to sit there at the house and do Instagram and just try to connect or just talk to answer emails.
Right.
Or it might be time to sit there and try to figure out what's the next thing you can do to make your business better or your brand better or do something that can be helpful.
Right? Lately, it's been who are we going to podcast with and how are we going to get there.
Fortunately, I know cool people like Scott.
Yeah, fortunately.
There's I always laughed and said there's the beauty of being like the UPS driver. So the guy gets up in the morning. His choice is he's going to put on brown, and he's going to drive to work. He's going to get in a truck that somebody else kind of filled up. He's going to spend the first half of the day delivering packages, and he's going to spend the next half of the day picking packages up. Mm-hmm. And it's these short-term goals. I'm sure he has a sense of accomplishment every single day.
Right.
He's making okay money.
Yeah.
It's a great company with great benefits, and there's a lot of pluses to that. And when his day is done, he can go home and kind of wipe his memory, and tomorrow's a new day with new goals. Or some of the things you're working on, some of the things I'm working on, we know we're not going to see any results for a year sometimes.
Yeah.
And that can kind of wear on you, right? That can kind of wear on you. I mean, I find myself as like a therapy type thing. Okay, this sounds weird, but I find myself really enjoying when I get a chance to mow my own yard, or when I get a chance to wash a bike or wash a car, because I've got this short-term goal, and I start with something. My grass is too high, my truck's dirty, and I can see the results a couple hours later, because so much of what I'm working on is 6 months down the road, 18 months down the road, and you don't see those immediate results. So
it's like you're not taking the small stuff for granted now. You appreciate the small stuff like that to help keep you going.
Small wins every day.
Right. Yeah, and it's fueling your fire.
Right, and they're almost they're let my mind wander. When you're washing your car, you're not really you're let your mind wander, and it's a Zen thing almost. But it is nice to have something that you start and finish 2 hours later, you're done with it. Yeah. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's accomplished. That's. I'm pretty sure I do. I like video games and shit like that. That's my checkout, but accomplishment thing. So, a new game would come out. It looks fun. So I'd get like in it, and when I get off work, I'd play it, and then I'd beat it, and then I'm like, cool.
Right.
Like I feel like I just conquered something that I had complete control over, and then I go back to doing.
I'm that same way, but then I get this horrible sense of guilt when I'm like 6 hours into it, and I'm like. All of these things that I'm accomplishing will never do anything else ever in the history of anything in the universe. And unless I go and talk to somebody else who's not done that in the video game, who's played it and couldn't do it, I can't talk about it. Right. I can't do it. It's like something you just have to sit there and like, you're just trading your time for lies,
Right.
you know? And it's like,
Right.
I start thinking about
think
that,
about
and
it.
then I'll
Some
just
people-
get mad, like, man, whatever.
Some
I'm
people
off.
go. I mean, I
I
have
love
good
them, though.
friends that do the 9 to 5, and then they get home and then they got this cool garage with the welder and the lathe, and they tinker and they do shit, and that to me looks fun. But they don't do it for a living.
Right.
So when they get home, it's fresh. It's
Yeah,
starting
they
fresh
enjoy
on
it.
something great and new that they haven't been doing all day.
Right.
And the same thing with me, and I've fallen into a rut over the last couple of years, to where I used to love to come home and paint. I used to love it. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
it was, I mean, I was doing it every day,
Right.
but of course, what I wasn't doing, I wasn't really riding bikes that much. I had a bike, but my daily routine wasn't riding bikes.
Right.
So now when I would get off work and I had free time, I'm like, man, I want to go ride somewhere, have a beer, and talk about philosophical shit with random people. You know what I mean?
Right.
Usually me.
So, so over this time, I got all these canvases and these helmets and these skateboards that I just want to do some cool things I have ideas for, but you get home and it's like, oh man, that's more work. So
Right.
I need to check out. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's something I've been fighting with for a while that I'm hopefully trying to get over, but you know.
Jace made a good point about that same kind of topic, though. He said this a while back. It was like, you know, like with the whole video game thing, like sitting there and spending 6 hours and you feel like you wasted it. But it's like, if you do enough during the day or during that week, then it's like you feel like you deserve that. You know what I mean? Like you work for it, and you feel like, okay, you don't feel so guilty about sitting there and doing it. You know, so like if you don't work for it, if you don't do anything that whole week, and then you're sitting there 6
You're rewarding
hours,
yourself, right?
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's kind of. I mean, I'm not perfect, you know. Like, fucking new game comes out, and I've been waiting for it for a month. It doesn't matter who, how, what's going on. That game's getting
played, yeah.
But you know, when you go and you knock some shit out during the week, sometimes I'll look forward to that. Man, I'm getting off at 4 today, and I work for myself, so I can stay up till 4 in the morning playing this video game.
I can go crack a beer open and play this game all night.
Sometimes it's rewarding yourself for the guilty pleasures. I mean, when you're the crazy travel schedule, when you're banging out a bike for a show or something, and you're just, I mean, it's 20-hour days. That's when it's real tough to say, I'm gonna have a salad too.
Yeah.
And, you know, we want whether we're traveling or we're working,
Yeah.
and I'm working my ass off. I'm cramming it. You know, I'm doing crazy hours. I deserve that greasy hamburger.
Exactly.
You know,
I do the same. That's why I look like this now, man.
I mean, that becomes really tough for all of us. I mean, it's being mindful because again, we want to reward ourselves, or we want to, you know, because we're grinding it
we
out.
lie to ourselves.
Right, for sure, absolutely.
So what all stuff are you guys going to be involved with this year? I mean, have y'all got the schedule?
Can you even disclose that kind of information with us?
Where are people going? I mean, I saw you at a lot of places last year.
Yep.
You know what? Actually, I'm sitting here today because
Hold
of
the question,
Instagram.
Jace.
No, I gotta. We're sitting here today because of you know the fact that you know I painted a helmet. You saw it. You commented on it. We saw each other at a bike event.
Yep.
And we just shot the shit.
Yeah,
And now we're
yeah,
sitting here and we're having
yeah,
this conversation.
yeah.
And that's the glory of social media.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely. So I do our Instagram and our small Facebook presence that we have, and it becomes one of these. You know, it's kind of my baby. You know, I'm way behind on messages because I get like 100 instant messages a day.
Yeah.
And now I'm to the point where like I'm taking my phone in the bathroom or my tablet in the bathroom just to kind of try to keep up. And then I've got regular work on the motorcycle side of things for Simpson. There's really 3 people.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's
that's the crazy thing.
It's a big company.
Yeah.
Everybody thinks it's a big giant company, and we certainly get a lot of help, admin help from other people. The company's a big company, and so whether it's receivables and payables and purchasing and all this, there's a lot of other people involved. But for dedicated motorcycle group, it's just 3 of us guys.
Yeah.
And you know, we wear a lot of hats, and we really love it. We kind of live the life, but yeah, it doesn't really stop for me. So I have this weird schedule where I'm just kind of working all the time.
Yeah.
And you know, you take little breaks, personal breaks, to get things done like laundry and dishes and things like that. But
oh man, I'm out of clothes.
right, it works like that, right? And so I think more of the same. We certainly are kind of, I call it a crown of a subculture.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it was, we were just kind of fortunate that a couple groups of people decided our helmets were really, really cool.
Yeah.
And they kind of embraced them, and it was off to the races. And so Simpson, it started in motorsports safety in 1959. And like in the mid 70s, they made some motorcycle helmets. I think they made motorcycle helmets before they actually made car helmets. And in the late 70s and early 80s, they were actually pretty big in superbike style racing when it first got big, when people were taking motorcycles, standard Japanese motorcycles, and turning them into superbikes. And then NASCAR happened, and NASCAR just got huge and massive. And so the resources we had for the company were just stretched so thin, and NASCAR, quite frankly, was a license to print money.
Yeah.
And so kind of all of our people went and helped out that, and we never stopped making motorcycle helmets, but nobody paid attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And, with the economy changing and things, racing in general is sort of kind of flat. And a few years back, they created an internal team to kind of investigate some different things, and they saw some glimmer of hope with some motorcycle helmets that, like, again, we didn't promote, but we're starting to sell. And I think it's because it's a unique look. It's different than what was on the market.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a while, it was an internal team that kind of did motorcycle helmets as kind of a part-time job on the side. And then they came a couple years ago and hired me, and they promoted a gentleman from within to kind of lead the group. And he's been at Simpson a long time. I'm an outsider. I've only been here 2 years, but they brought me in as kind of the guy who's been in the motorcycle industry his whole life and ridden his whole life. And it's it's a tight team, but we work really well together. We have a lot of fun, and we're enjoying it. So we're going to do, we'll definitely be at Born Free. We'll definitely be at Giddy Up. We were working on the schedule pretty hard today. We're going to be at Mama Tried.
Mm-hmm. That's coming up pretty soon.
Mama Tried is at the end of February, yeah. And it's a fantastic show. It's such a good time, and they've got Flat Out Friday, which is a little flat track racing inside of a basketball stadium. So
that's cool. I've never.
Oh, it's
never heard of ice racing up there too.
Yeah, I've never.
So on Sunday, I forget what they call the Sunday one, but when the conditions are right, they'll be out on the ice too. So it's a really cool weekend crazy. In general. And last year, I think it was a little bit slushy. It was pretty warm there. A lot of people actually rode to the show.
Oh,
but what's great about it is you can go up there in Milwaukee, you can take in the show, and then HD's corporate headquarters and their incredible museum. I mean, their museum is just stunning. So you can do a middle of the winter 3 or 4 day weekend. A lot of people wouldn't pick Wisconsin to go to.
Exactly.
But for a motorcycle guy with cabin fever, I don't think that weekend there'd be a better place in America to be than right there.
Just being around all that history. God,
yeah.
I mean,
for sure.
Dude. So, Giddy Up, that'll be here in New Braunfels end of March. Yep. And then Born Free, I think Born Free is a little bit later in June this year.
Yeah, Born Free is it's the last weekend in June, I believe.
And y'all be back at AIM Expo again too, huh?
Yeah, so AIM Expo this year will be in Las Vegas.
Yeah. I really want to go to that. I went to SEMA this year.
Right.
And I hadn't been to SEMA in a couple of years, and I was fortunate to get to go on that ride with House of Color out there. But you said it earlier, I was so out of my element there. Right? I mean, talented people left and right. You couldn't bump into any better people,
Right.
But I just couldn't find anybody that was relevant in the industry of motorcycles for me to really just click with, know. And lots of great painters that I talked to, but man, I felt like I was just in the wrong place, man.
Sure.
And I'm hoping, I think that the motorcycle industry needs something like that because I mean, we're only 3%, like you were saying. You know what I mean? So SEMA was probably all the motorcyclists in America at one place.
Right.
So it's kind of a tough. It's a big thing to ask for, but there's just so much talent. There's so many different types and styles and areas of motorcycling that I think it would be just as amazing to have a show like that and promote it for vendors and dealers to go out and do that. And then have the outside where you have more of your just balls to the wall custom guys. And
well, in spirit, you know, the AIM Expo is a different show than what we've had in the past. In the past, there was a lot of people are familiar with the Dealer Expo that was in Cincinnati.
Yeah, the V-Twin Expo?
Well, no, it's different than that even.
That?
This was called the Dealer Expo, and it was in Cincinnati, and then it went on to Indianapolis, and was in Indianapolis for 20-some years, and then it kind of ran into some demise. It just kind of fell apart, and then the people that started this show, called the AIM Expo, they brought in a lot of people from the Dealer Expo, and they have an incredible staff there. But what it is, it's our industry's trade show. Mm-hmm. So everybody that's anybody is kind of at that show. And in the past, it was only open to dealers. And now what they've done is they've extended the show a couple days, and they've opened it up the last 2 days to the public.
Yeah.
So it's the public's, the first few years to have the opportunity, because that's how European shows are, and people really seem to enjoy those. So from a manufacturing standpoint, when I go there and I've spent, tens of thousands of dollars having a booth and bringing staff in and hotels and all these things, it's wonderful to get to see our dealers and potential new dealers, but it's pretty exciting as well to see consumers and riders and talk firsthand to them about what they like to see and what they think about our brand and how our helmets fit them, and just to discuss with nobody's as enthusiastic as riders,
Yeah, exactly.
So we're really excited this year. It's been AIM Expo has been in Orlando for a number of years. Last year it was its first opportunity. It moved to Ohio, to Columbus, Ohio, my hometown, which was awesome.
Easy.
Easy for me. And Ohio's a great motorcycling state.
It is.
There's a lot of motorcyclists there. The American Motorcyclist Association is in Ohio. But next year, AIM Expo is going to be moving to Las Vegas, and it's going to be the same weekend as Monster Cup. So Monster Energy is going to be tied in. So there's going to be an indoor motocross race,
Wow.
A fall race that's kind of an open race that doesn't really follow any schedule. It just has a really big purse for a one-off race.
Oh, so it's not really on the tour, but it's,
nope.
it's just kind of its own thing.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
That's
yeah,
cool.
it's well before Supercross, and it's well after the Outdoor Nationals. So it's kind of a standalone one event with a great big purse for the winner.
Yeah.
And it'll be really neat. Obviously, NASCAR now has a big giant tie-in with Monster Energy.
Yeah.
And the Unknown guys who are our Unknown Industries, we sponsor them. The great group of guys. They've been Monster for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So we see a great opportunity for a big giant tie-in. I see exactly what you guys are drinking here today.
Yeah,
So-
Monster.
I tell myself that I'm losing weight by drinking these sugar-free.
I think they're worse for you than
ultras.
the actual sugars.
Right.
But it got me off my Red Bull fucking kick, man. I was a fiend on Red Bull, and this
Right.
kind of got me off. And now
Sure.
I'm just a fiend on this now.
Right.
Same
So
thing.
it's pretty neat that it's going to be in Vegas, so it's pretty easy for most of the West Coast people to hit.
Yeah.
And it'll
Well,
be
that's
there.
a lot of the industry. I mean, a lot of big name industry is there. I mean,
Right,
you got
for sure.
you got half of the bagger scene is all right there in Arizona, and then you got your PMs and your Nesses and all your manufacturers, Corbin, all these guys are in Cali, so
Right.
it makes sense to be over there, and you'll probably get a bigger crowd, huh?
But it's unusual. It's funny you say that, because a lot of times that when they've tried shows in California, because everybody's there, they're spoiled.
Yeah.
And so people don't really come out.
Yeah.
Right. So
It's the
there's
same thing we run into with
Just a simple, bike
local
event here.
bike scenes.
Right.
Like whenever you throw an event that's local, all the people that are local that you would expect to be there, they don't show up. But then you get dudes from out here, like San Antonio or something, they
Right.
all show up.
right. Yeah.
So,
That's how. I mean, we just experienced that.
yeah.
Right.
We did a little
Yeah.
ride.
Down to Dallas.
We try to do
Yeah.
every year on New Year's, weather permitting. We try to just get everybody together. And the year before last, we do it out on a whim, and we had a great turnout from Dallas, right?
Yeah.
And so this year we started kind of kicking it off a little earlier, and then of course we had shitty weather, so we decided to postpone it. And then we still had shitty weather.
Right.
but we still had a huge turnout from San Antonio, Austin, and a couple guys from Houston.
Right.
And then it was just like the Dallas regulars that came out.
Sure.
You know.
Sure.
Great time anyway. You know, it's
Right.
all. My selling point on that was I was just trying to tell people like, you know, hey, I met people at Giddy Up that I rode with all year long.
Right.
I met people at the Dyna FXR ride we put on New Year's last year that I spent the rest of the year hanging out with.
Right.
So when you go to these opportunities and you just talk to people and get to know them, you know,
Right.
you click with people, and the next thing you know, you got a new friend that you can go do the crazy shit that maybe your old friend doesn't want to do. You know what I mean?
Right, for sure.
So,
Yeah, we had an open house here.
that was cool, yeah.
In October, and it was neat. It's the first time we renovated our building. We have been here in New Braunfels for 20 years. We renovated our building, and it was a wild success. We had way more cars
There was
and
some
trucks,
crazy
and there was
cars
there
out
was
here,
some
God.
insane stuff. But in addition to that, you know, I've been kicking around for a while, and Shane and I have been talking about, you know, potentially having, and I think October is a great time for it. You know, having a ride that starts here and riding up around Hill Country, and maybe having, you know, renting a block of rooms and having a big giant barbecue and like
Ooh,
Fred-
that'd be
Fredericktown.
so cool.
You're so
I'm
absolutely
sold.
have to do it now.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
sold now. So.
Right. So I think, you know, October's a good time of year for us to do that. You know, we meet up, and it might be one of those things where, and, you know, initially it's like invitational, and we might have to see how it rolls for a couple of years or something, and then because if you hear about these great events like Smokeout,
Yeah, exactly.
that basically started off as people getting together and having like a breakfast or something. I think like in Pigeon Forge or something like that.
Yeah, some crazy shit.
And now it's turned into this a giant event, and you know, I don't want to have it. You know, I'm not having it for the sake of having an event or bringing customers here. I want to have it to like have that whole community, right? I want to
Yeah.
meet people.
You want to help build
Right.
a community and help support what's
Right.
already there.
Just,
Right.
Dude, the shit's fun, man.
Right.
You don't have to sell it to me. That,
Yeah,
that
I
you
know.
know,
You
hanging
definitely
out
don't
with a
have to-
bunch of fun dudes, and that probably sounded gay.
Hanging out
Just
with a
hanging
bunch
out
of
with a bunch of
dudes.
guys that you can have great conversations with,
Right.
and you know, that are like-minded. You know,
Right.
it's just gonna be a fucking great
Right.
time. You
Yeah.
throw alcohol in that mix, and it's gonna be
Right.
a great time.
Throw
You know,
barbecue in that mix.
Yeah. Well, you do. You meet some fantastic people. You know, and again, you see them on Instagram. You meet them in person.
Mhm.
You know, have a customer that you know loves our brand. We love him. He's Albie. He's on Instagram. You have you know, just a fantastic group of people, and you know, you're talking all the time on there, but to actually hook up in person and have a conversation. is
I meet a
fantastic.
lot of cool people, you know, on Instagram, and I think partially the reason I like to do the cross country ride now is because the audience that I do have now, that they're not just Texas people or this, they're everywhere. So I feel what I like doing is I like to meet these people when I go through their towns. Like,
Sure.
if my idea is to ride from here to California, but I'm gonna stop in Denver, Colorado, I like to be able to put on Instagram, man, I'm in Denver, I'm gonna be in Denver tonight, and then people chime in like, hey, let's come
Right.
here, I'm gonna show you this cool ass bar, and it's just so fucking cool,
Right.
you know. And hell, I think I've gone on those trips and met people that night and fucking crashed at their house,
Right.
you know. And it's
For
like,
sure.
yeah, I mean, I could die from that, you know what I mean? But it's
Right.
still an amazing experience. And now, you know, now I'm like, you know what? I got people that I consider cool or close friends now
Right.
in Denver. So now I want to go back to Denver and hang out with that guy again.
Right.
You know, and maybe sometimes for me it's like they just want to like, hey, you know, so I was thinking about a paint job, but
Right.
at the same time, I a lot of shops are that way. Like they'll be
Sure.
like, hey, if you're coming to town, man, you can crash at my place, and
Right.
then, you know, it's just great, man. Like just hanging out with people that, especially people that are like-minded,
Yeah.
and you can like you can hear their version of life and maybe see if yours kind of coincides, or if maybe they're handling shit in life that's, you know, that I need help with right now.
Right.
So,
For sure. I mean,
Yeah.
without question, and I think that's part of the beauty of you know, it's a small knit group of people.
Yeah, there's only like what 10 million of us.
Yeah,
nationwide?
exactly. And so, but
And I don't break that down even
seems
more.
like it seems like a lot, but it's not.
No,
Especially
well-
when you say, okay, you know, we're probably, you know, there's 5-year-old, that includes 5-year-old kids riding mini bikes, you know. So there's your age group and the kind of bikes you ride. It's actually a pretty small group.
Yeah,
And-
exactly.
I remember like 4 or 5 weeks ago, before we started talking about doing this, when we were sitting in our garage drunk as hell, and you were trying to come up with these numbers.
Yeah, it's probably no.
This is
my whole
how this
numbers-
started. Is we were all drunk as hell. Like,
My
man, we
numbers-
should start a podcast.
My
Like,
numbers conversation was because of the conversation
Yeah.
me and you had.
I know,
at
and
the
I just
grand
put
opening
two
here,
and two
right,
together,
the
and he
house.
was like coming up with these numbers, and I'm like, where the hell? Like, I didn't say anything. I'm like, where the hell is he getting these numbers from? Like, Google.
I've been using it a lot.
Like,
Thanks for making me sound smart.
Yeah, and I'm like, what? He's really selling me with these numbers right
But
now.
it's absolutely true. I mean, you know, like you just said, that's all motorcycling. So, you know, if you think about it, okay, just Harley-based riders, now that number is drastically lowered.
Right.
And then you say, okay, let's cut out all those hog members. Let's just go.
Right.
Let's just go
Right.
to the 25 to 35 year old, or let's just say 18 to 35.
Right.
You know, then it's a lot smaller, and you know, I think they're all on my Instagram right now.
I think you've maxed out. You've hit your crescendo.
So-
It's only downhill from here.
You know, it's pretty funny. Even in the motorcycle industry, we see, you know, certainly there are new people that come in all the time,
Yeah.
and there are people who go away
It's freshmen and seniors every year, man.
every year. But the funny part is, you know, our letterhead may change, our titles may change, but there's an awful lot of guys that I've known that have been at 4 or 5 different places over their career, and you can be fierce competitors with them, but you're still really good. They're really good guys, and you know, we're a competitor to Bell. You know, we're after the same guy a lot of times, and you know, I've known a guy that's worked at Bell for 20 years, and we ride dirt bikes together. You know,
Exactly.
he's a cool guy, and yeah, we're competitors, but it's never ever nasty. You know,
I have a great comment for that. Well, it's the same thing with painters. Like, you know, I know a lot of great painters across the country. You know, we share ideas, we share thoughts, we share tricks and all that stuff. And he can do something completely badass, or even something super simple, similar to what I just did. But the mass public doesn't see that conversation me and him had, and how, you know, maybe it's me telling this guy, dude, I love that color scheme. Do you mind if I do my version of that? He's like, dude, I'm proud that you would even want to do that color scheme.
right?
So on the professional level, we're all pretty cool.
Yeah.
What usually is the drama in anything is the customers who decide, oh, I'm going to get on Dynaholics and talk shit about so and so that does this work and pin them against so and so that does this work, but not knowing that behind closed doors, a lot of us are really cool together and friends.
Right. For sure.
You know?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, like I said, a lot of us have changed hats and brands and titles over the years, and you know, you just never know.
They think that, like, by saying or putting up or being that shit talker for us, that we're gonna be
Right.
like, thanks, buddy. Here's a free helmet. Here's a free paint job. I'm like,
Right.
man, you know. And
Right.
meanwhile,
Fucking up
me and so and so are texting back and forth. You're like, you see this dweeb on fucking
Yeah.
Facebook right now? So
Yeah. I mean, we all, no matter what industry you're involved in, I think there's some people who like to stir the pot and cause
Yeah.
controversy, obviously, and there are people who, you know, we all know there's people who are easily offended now.
Yeah.
And you know, it's you know, when we're out there on social media, you're open to everything.
Yeah.
And I think you just have to.
Suck it up, Buttercup.
Exactly, and I think it's, you know, it's pretty tough to completely remain neutral, because that means you don't stand for anything.
That was
That's
something
kind of
else
a
we were talking
bullshit,
about as well. Like, that's a good point. Is like, what do you stand for? Why
Right.
do you do these things? You know,
Right.
we were
I
talking
think a lot
about.
of people get they get this team mentality, like, oh man, you know, I really like this guy, or this guy said hi to me once at a bike event, so now we're buddies, so I'm
Yeah.
gonna go do the shit talking for this guy and
Right.
represent that company. And it's almost like, yeah, man, hey, I appreciate that, but
Right.
you know, realistically, some people, I feel like some people create drama that don't do this stuff for a living, or even some people in the industries like
Right.
the drama because it gives a lot of substance to their day.
Right.
Maybe their day's boring. Maybe there's nothing great happening. So
Right.
that drama, that fire, that
Right.
adrenaline that comes, like they become hooked to it.
Right.
When realistically, you know, I guess maybe for me, when I'm 35 now, I'm almost out of that age group. I'm like, I don't need any more stress on my life
Right.
whatsoever.
Right.
Like, all I want to do is complete the day
Right.
and, you know, just be happy. You know what I mean? That's it. That's
Right.
it. I don't want to talk shit about anybody. I don't want to spread negative stuff, which, you know, I'm sure I have negative comments about certain things, but for the most part, it's trying to be just happy and take the, you know, whatever cards you get, you know what
Sure.
I'm saying? So
Sure. Well, I have a funny story about, a recent situation like that. Simpson stands for, we're making fire suits, we're seat belts, we own the Hans device, we own an Italian brand of helmets that Formula One drivers use. I mean, it is a company that makes safety gear.
Yeah.
And so on the automotive side of things, we had a couple guys just a few weeks ago, send out a little email to some higher ups in corporate and said, we're a safety company and our motorcycle social media team is posting some pictures of guys doing things that it's really dangerous and actually quite illegal. And we make no apologies for showing guys doing the Iron Cross or doing wheelies and things like this.
Yeah,
and,
like stunts and stuff.
The point that I made, the point I made to kind of sell our position, because it is different than the auto racing side, but even on the auto racing, we're a safety company. But if you think about it, if we were really into safety, we would be telling people play PlayStation or
don't even get in the car.
Don't race cars.
Yeah.
Don't race motorcycles. Don't ride motorcycles. So what I say is, what we really are, we're not necessarily a safety company. We're a risk management company. So
True.
If what you do is risky business, okay, and you've decided to be a race car driver, you've decided to ride motorcycles, and I saw a study done by the National Safety Highway Institute that showed, and it's a scary statistic, that you're 15 times more likely to be killed in a motorcycle accident than a car accident.
Mm-hmm.
Totally sketchy, scary. So a lot of us, it's bad to throw rocks when we say, okay, I'm going to, as a motorcyclist, I don't like that guy because of the bike he rides and the style he rides is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like, well, as a motorcyclist, you've already accepted X amount of risk. Mm-hmm. Okay, if he accepts a little more than you, or he's not minimizing the risk as much as you are because of his gear choice or his riding style, that's a little hypocritical. It's kind of like a guy that smokes filtered cigarettes, pointing his finger at the guy who smokes non-filters and saying, you're going to kill yourself.
Yeah.
You're both taking a risk. So that's one of my analogies.
Case in point, man.
Right. That's one of my analogies, right?
That's me and Jace though. Jace will be going like 110 or something down the highway, and I'm going like 80. I'm like, dude, you need to slow down. I'm not doing it right now. And then we're still taking the same.
But you're still going fast.
Exactly.
So I always say, it's risk management, and if you really want to be safe,
don't do it.
The couch is a nice soft place for you.
Yeah.
But for people who have accepted and want to go fast and want to race and want the competition and all those different aspects of the need for speed, so to speak, the products we make, what they allow you to do is, the human body's pretty fragile, and what they allow you to do is they extend the performance of the human body as far as what kind of danger it can take. And I don't know anybody who puts on safety gear and goes slower. You put on safety gear so you can go faster.
When I would ride my Harley, which it took a while to get to the point where I was constantly wearing a helmet.
Right.
But naturally, when I put the helmet on, I rode more ignorant.
Right.
I mean?
Sure.
I mean, I'm not saying that that's everybody, but I'm like, well, fuck it. If I go down now, I got a better chance of living, so I'm going to take this a little bit more hard, you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's exactly how I would feel. And then when I would not be with my helmet, I'm much more conscious and aware. But
well, I think we don't take, we try not to have a preaching stance. I like the idea of people having the choice where they have a choice. But I'll say this, I'm a numbers guy. And I've seen the statistics, and the statistics don't lie. If you always wear a helmet when you ride, you don't have any alcohol whatsoever, and you actually have a motorcycle license, because you'd be surprised how many people don't have a motorcycle license. those three things. Now, statistics are always wrong. There's always, statistically speaking, they're not perfect. Exceptions. But if you have those three things, statistically speaking, you'll never be killed in a motorcycle accident. Those three things, and quite often, two of those three things contribute to the greatest number of motorcycle deaths.
Yeah.
So, again, it is ride your own ride. Manage your risk as you see fit. Mm-hmm. What's your lifestyle? Do you have 6 kids at home and a big giant mortgage?
Yeah.
Those are choices you have to make. So again, we don't try to be preachy, but helmets help you push that envelope a little bit more.
Yeah.
Without question.
So, how many is other companies like Bell and stuff? Are they American-made helmets?
Essentially, right now, there are no American-made motorcycle helmets at all. Mm-hmm. There's just not, unfortunately. I think there's somebody working on a small half helmet that they're trying to make in America. I don't know whether that will actually fly, but there's 2 people making helmets in general that aren't military helmets. There are military helmets being made, but it's us and another car company that's making automotive helmets in America. Mm-hmm. And making helmets is very, very labor intensive. There's no robots involved. It's very hands-on, hand done.
I've seen the process back there. It's pretty amazing. That time you walked me through it, and I got to see all the different departments where this took place and this took place, and knowing that something so cool is just built by hand, literally. Right. It was pretty fascinating.
So on the motorcycle side of things, our helmets are made overseas, but we are still making car helmets in America. But car helmets are a lot more expensive, and it's just the point where motorcycle helmets, people wouldn't accept motorcycle helmets that were that expensive. Mm-hmm. Before I retire, it would be very, very hard for anybody to just from scratch start up a helmet company with all this, the processes you need and the equipment you need testing wise and everything like that. But since we've got it on the automotive side, it will be one of those projects I work on, and I will accomplish it before I retire, to make motorcycle helmets again in America. There might still be the bulk of the helmets made overseas, but there'll be maybe special models that are American-made models.
It's super crazy, like I said, since we've been working with you guys and we've been trying to push the brand and the helmets, we get a lot of weird questions, you know what I mean?
Sure.
We get people want to try one on, and obviously when you're selling a helmet to a dude in Iowa who has no fucking Simpson motorcycle helmet to be tried on, right, it's almost like you're going on that whim of like, trust me,
Sure.
And then you got the other group of guys that just there's it's crazy. There's a group of people who will spend $110 on a helmet, and that's it. Like that's as much as they'll put on it. And that's a helmet's not worth more than that to them.
Right.
And there's certain people, like I said, back in my sport bike days, I wore Shoeis and the Rise, and I can never say, is it Suomi? I used to love their helmets. Right. They had the coolest fucking graphics, right?
Yeah, but they're Italian, so they sound Japanese, but they're actually Italian, and they're great helmets. I mean, those were great helmets.
You're spending $700, $800, $900 on those helmets, and then so I feel like the price range for the Simpson helmets are completely fair, and I push personally the Ghost Bandit more because I think it's a more rider friendly across the board helmet.
Right.
But we were just talking about this before we actually clicked record, and I think that there's a certain place for each helmet that you guys make. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think that there are certain ones that are more modern and new. Like you mentioned, the Ghost Bandit. It has it's the most aerodynamic one. It's the quietest. It has a drop-down sun visor, and it's the helmet that I'm going to pick when I'm going to go and ride 3 states away. Mm-hmm. But there's a lot of people who never do that.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people who want a helmet, to ride around in their urban environment, and maybe those guys might pick because they're riding an old Scrambler or something very, very vintage. they might pick one of our other models that's more of a vintage model for that feel and that authenticity that they're looking for.
Yeah, a little bit of a looser,
right? Well,
kinda...
just an more open feeling with a lot more air flowing through. It's definitely noisier, but I think when you're the guy that's jumping on a panhead and you're riding around town or an old knuckle or something, I don't think that guy's looking for hypoallergenic, the quietest helmet in the world.
Yeah.
That guy wants kind of that authenticity, that grittiness. I mean, that's the
and the styling from the M30 and the M50 is a lot more of that old school kind of vibe.
For sure. I mean, the M50 is effectively one of the first. Us and Bell kind of go back and forth who had the first full face dirt bike helmet, and the M50 is just a recreation of the first full face dirt bike helmet. And for all intents and purposes, it just looks like an old school open face or 3/4 with like a small chin bar on it.
Yeah.
And we were talking earlier, I on my bagger, I'm liable to throw that on with a pair of sunglasses, and yeah, it's a vintage looking dirt bike helmet, but around town, the way it feels, it's really, really small. It's a tiny. The profile on the outside is tiny. It's really crazy lightweight, and I love riding that thing just around town.
Especially get you one of those carbon, one of those, you'll feel like nothing's on your head
at all. Right, exactly. So, but riding a couple states away, going out on the highway, and constant 60 to 80 miles an hour, I'm gonna pull the Ghost off the shelf.
Now on the Outlaw, y'all made the changes to the visor.
Yeah.
Like, what did that do specifically? I know it was something better with the just the wind. What was it?
So the big reason to change that is again, and this goes back to we're a group of car guys that were here.
Yeah.
And car guys, when you're in a car, you close the shield because the shield's part of your fireproofness.
Yeah.
And so they never ride around in a car with the shield up. And
you need to breathe, and so
you close the shield when you're in a car, and you never have air because you're in a car with a windshield. You never have air pushing on the visor. So even if you did have it open, it's going to stay open.
Yeah.
Well, on a motorcycle, and it kind of drove me crazy when I first came here, I would ride around with an Outlaw, testing it, trying it out, and above 30 miles an hour, the shield always wanted to close automatically, and I kind of hated that.
Yeah.
And so the project was we tried to retrofit to the current shield, but it just didn't work out. So we decided to go ahead, and instead of the shield before was drape formed, or it's basically a cutout piece of flat Lexan that's heated and draped over a mold, we went ahead and decided to do a new shield with new pivot that has very positive detents, and then we would injection mold the shield. So the shield is very, very precisely molded, a lot more precisely than the drape mold. And that has, in doing that, we also updated the gasket around the eye port so it seals that much better. So it's a lot quieter. The performance of the shield is better. The optics are better. And the shield, like me, when it's 100 degrees and I'm wearing a pair of sunglasses, I want to be able to have my shield open on my motorcycle helmet, and I want to be able to go 100 miles an hour and not have the shield blow closed on me or fall on me. And so that was the big giant change for the Outlaw Bandit.
So what year did that take place? Is that really recent?
So all of the helmets that were produced in 17 have that.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't think mine has it.
Right.
No,
right.
They have that little angle at the top, and it's at the bottom as well.
Because mine's like, I'll put it up halfway or something, and as soon as I take off, it's like, and I'm like, oh shit.
It's funny. There's some guys here in Texas that are making some billet aluminum.
Yeah, Chopper House.
Yeah. Okay. Is it Chopper House? Yeah. Chopper House, yeah.
Good friends of ours.
So they actually make like a retrofit that's for all those old ones.
And it helps hold the shield up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, they found their own solution, and God bless them. I mean, they've built a little market out of that, and I think they even do ones shaped like California and shaped like Texas.
Yeah, Texas. They've got a few of them.
Yeah. So that's really cool. But for us, the Outlaw Bandit is one of our best-selling helmets. Of it and the Ghost are really, really close to each other, and performance-wise, again, it doesn't have the bells and the whistles of the Ghost.
Yeah.
But it's a fantastic helmet. It's Snell approved. It's I don't know. I mean, it's probably between those two, I'm kind of torn.
I honestly, I think the Outlaw Bandit looks better. I like the simplicity of it.
Right.
But I think the Ghost Bandit is a lot more.
It works better.
It's better. You know what I mean?
What happens when I'm trying to essentially convince people about these helmets is that they ask things like wind noise and airflow, and those things are kind of like one and the same. It's like you put too many vents, you get too much noise.
Right.
You don't put enough of it. So people have to come to a happy medium of what it is.
Right. And it's very subjective. I mean, what winds up happening is there's no way like you could make a helmet very, very quiet in a wind tunnel.
Yeah.
What winds up happening is depending on how tall the rider is.
Yeah.
Does he have a fairing? Does he have a windshield? How tall is his windshield? What's his bars doing to his angle of attack?
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many variables, and you can't just say, okay, make a helmet that's quiet all around, because it depends on where the helmet hits the air. A lot of times it'd be easiest to make a helmet that's just, if it was in 100% airflow, and there was no air coming off the bike or coming off the rider's arms or something, it'd be a lot easier to make a clean aerodynamic helmet. But the fact that a lot of times you're getting wind that's swirling around and coming in from behind you and all these other factors.
Even like if you have a passenger, that creates a wind.
Oh yeah, that's
Absolutely.
real bad when you have a passenger.
Absolutely.
You feel it like kicking
But
up.
that's any helmet. And I
Yeah.
think it just sucks that that people put so much what's the word? Like they make it your responsibility.
Well, they don't understand the
what you just
what's
said.
behind it.
Right.
It's
You know what I
probably
mean?
going to explain to a lot of people what causes these things, and it's not a specific helmet that made it happen. It's all the dynamics of what you and how you're riding, your arm positions.
Right.
Because I've ridden bikes with A painters that are wide, and then next thing you know, I'm just my head's bobbing and weaving all the time because of naturally how the wind's flowing across me.
Right.
And then my wife gets on the back and I'm fine, and then she gets off and then it's horrible. You know what I mean? So there's so many variables.
Right, and there's lots of things like vents. When you put vents on helmets, on the front of helmets, and you start trying to ram air into them at 70, 80 miles an hour, you just build up this high pressure area, and you can't get any more air in the vent. So the actual way to get air out of the helmet is putting vents on the back of the helmet, so in their low pressure zone. So what you're doing is you're not ramming air into the helmet, you're extracting it out the back, so you create this basically a suction.
Yeah.
And that it's not that people don't understand that, they just they wear their helmet and they don't give it that much thought. They've got other things on their mind. And our helmets do. I mean, they have our iconic Simpson look kind of has that flat front, and that's really, really hard to make it aerodynamic.
I'll pass on anything for those helmets. Look so fucking cool, and for me as a painter, I love painting them because they're not littered with these sliding open vents and that stuff. As a painter, it gets complicated to carry designs and graphics and layers of paint over before you get too much, and then it's muddy and it's just a nightmare. But that I love painting them, and that's the only reason. If you ask anybody over the last 10 years of my life, they would tell you that Jace hates fucking painting helmets. He does not like touching them. He doesn't want to do it.
Right.
And then, one of my close friends, he's the one that turned me on to you guys because he was a big fan of the unknown guy. He's a dirt bike guy, and he followed these guys from dirt bikes to the unknown thing. And then he started wearing the Simpson. And, mind you, this is when we were on big wheel baggers where the only kind of head protection we had was a bandana and a backwards baseball cap.
Right.
And then he started wearing a helmet, and then honestly, no shit, I'm riding next to this dude, he's wearing this helmet, and I'm looking over going, it looks pretty fucking cool.
Right.
So now, then the winter before last, the winter of 2016, I finally bought one, and I painted it. I'm like, I dig it.
Right.
And ever since then, I've been wearing it, and
now he's got a million that he just paints differently,
Yeah, I literally want a different one for
every
my
day of the
mood.
week.
Sure.
Yeah.
I don't like matching helmets. I will say this. I'm not a huge fan, and people give me shit because I always say that it's kind of super Power Ranger-ish.
Right.
When you match your helmet to your bike. But within reason, sometimes it just has to be that way,
Sure.
and I'm completely okay with that.
Sure.
I'm not going to hate you because of it.
Right.
Me personally, I like to paint my helmets in a very monochromatic way so that no matter what color bike I'm on,
Sure.
especially since I have more than one, it's like if I painted this helmet to match this bike, then I'm always subjected to that, only being able to wear that helmet.
Sure.
So a nice black and gray helmet with my favorite color in it, or whatever. Then I'm just. It's like when you buy like a really nice graphic. How do you say it again? Swami.
Yeah.
Some of the best graphics in the world on these helmets, right? You weren't this. I mean, some people probably bought them to match their bike because it might be a blue helmet. He had a blue bike, but it ain't the same blue.
Right.
But a lot of people just bought like one that was cool as shit to them because they liked it, and no matter what color their bike was, it didn't matter. And I think that's it.
Yeah, for me, I mean, I'm much more likely. I'm much more likely to not try to match my helmet to the bike I'm riding, but match my helmet to the kind of ride I'm going on. So, you know, if I'm going to go on a long distance ride, I'll pick one helmet. If I'm going to ride around town, I'll pick one helmet. If it's hot, I'll pick one helmet.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I'll have, you know, and I'm lucky enough to have a number of different helmets on my shelf, and some are even not Simpson helmets, and that's okay.
Yeah.
You know, but depending on what kind of ride I'm going to go on, I'm going to pick that helmet, you know, because it offers this kind of experience, like you said. So I think that's important.
Yeah, for sure. The experience is what it's all about, man.
Right.
When it's all said and done,
Right.
And I guess the cool thing I love the most is, you know, as I'm collecting these helmets like some trophies now.
For sure.
A lot of people. So when I painted my Samuel Jackson helmet, you know, it helped us sell a lot more helmets and paint jobs and stuff. But when I told people that, okay, that was last year's helmet, now it's going on the mantle.
Right.
I had a lot of people like, man, I'll buy it from you. I'm like, that helmet has memories to me now. Like,
sure.
I look at that helmet and I think of, you know, the times we had on the trips that I took on that helmet, you know, because the bikes. You know, as a bike guy, painter, builder, whatever you want to call it, I got to get rid of these bikes at some point. So I'm going to lose that memory. I'm going to lose that experience, right? But that helmet was something that I had on that journey that I can retain that feeling from. So, you know, I'll never sell my helmets. I'll just buy another one and start again.
Right. Plus, I
mean,
mean,
as a bike builder, I think maybe sometimes you build a bike and then it evolves, and it kind of sometimes it gets rebuilt, or you're trying out new parts, or you're trying out this and that. So the bike is always kind of changing. But when you paint a helmet, you typically don't repaint a helmet.
Exactly.
So when you paint a helmet, it becomes this like exclamation, this point of time. And I know that Samuel Jackson's gonna always be in your head as that summer of 17.
Yeah.
You know, it's true.
Summer of 17.
Right. But it's true. I mean, it's, you
Nice.
know, that, you know, all the photos of that bike, you know, which
helmets hanging off the side.
Helmets hanging off the side,
Yeah.
and, you know, and that bike, you know, I questioned you about it when it was here. You know, it's the bike blows me away, and, you know, it's got all this really cool gold paint, and then it's got like that lavender stripe that somehow is like a J signature, you know, and I think it's so cool. And, you know, I don't know anybody that would have the vision to say, okay, I'm going to paint a bike gold. And most people would throw a red stripe or a black stripe or something like that, but somehow I think lavender is the color that works.
It was between lavender and baby blue.
I mean, it kills it.
Glad you didn't do baby blue.
Baby blue would have been sick too. You know,
I think it would have been.
The thing is with me is I've always felt like pinstripe colors for paint jobs are the way that you can get risque. You know what I mean? Like you can get out of the normal. I mean, here's the deal. A lot of customers, when they're gonna buy or they're gonna have a bike painted, they might have had to say, this might be income tax return, or believe it or not, I've had people do 401ks to get stuff done, right? Or they take a loan out on it, right? So this isn't something they do a lot. So this is an investment. They want to make sure that they're getting what they want. So they're going to be less likely to go off the deep end and try something new that might work out, because
be safe.
Unfortunately, this isn't like, hey, let's try this, and if it don't work out, we're going to redo it. No, like this is the direction, we're going to live with this.
Right.
So I feel like the pinstripe color is just a way of creating another vibe off the bike. Like you could throw this completely. Here's the deal. I think golds, reds, the most appealing paint jobs are always going to be in the same family. It's like, say if you take a gold and you put a a massive amount of like blue with it, then you get to that logo kind of thing where you're trying to be McDonald's with red and yellow, you know what I mean, or something like that. But when you want to look at something just pleasing to the eye, the colors need to be all in the same family or complementing each other.
Sure.
And it's sometimes that when you can jump onto the other side of the color wheel and grab a color and just put a little bit in it,
right?
It's just like sets it off,
right?
Or gives it its uniqueness to it.
So in a way, you know, for the customer that comes to you, the client that wants to do, you know, a once in a lifetime paint job on his bike.
Yeah. It's a lot of pressure.
Right.
It's
right. Sure, it's a lot of pressure.
Especially if they
but
say
but
that.
Then he comes in and he wants a gold bike, and in his head, red and black are the only colors that's going to go with gold. He can see your bike where you have purposely stepped outside of the box, and you're doing something way different. So maybe that helps them feel some confidence to go off the map a little bit, or you know, in uncharted territory, and to kind of trust you.
Yeah, there was a moment there where we were doing nothing but crazy colored paint jobs.
Yeah, I mean,
like wild
paint
colors.
jobs come in groups. Like we'll always do a group of blues, a group of greens, a group of purples, but damn, I lost what I was gonna say on this one.
Sorry.
What was it? Fuck.
Oh, dude.
I lost it good. It's
wow. The one guy who never quits talking. That's crazy. Blows my mind.
And now that I'm laughing about it, it's not coming back.
Yeah, I'm just really trying to kill time. Like, you remember what you're gonna talk about?
It's gone, dude. It is over. That thought is out of the park.
Well, I mean, we've been going for like an hour and a half so far, so I mean, we got some more.
What else should
got
we?
some
Is there anything else
more
we
time.
touch on?
Talk more.
Yeah, we got some more time. So
yeah. My phone, man, it keeps on.
I mean,
It's all them
we
girlfriends,
can
man.
we can take a break.
No, I mean, I'm good unless you guys need to go and do your.
No, we're good. All we're gonna do is go sit in traffic in Austin now.
Yeah, I terribly do not want to do that.
Yeah, so a lot of times people with these paint jobs, they'll come in and then they'll see something that I did, right? So obviously it's a really hard area to kind of navigate. It's hard waters to navigate because I'll paint a bike, and then that'll be the bike that puts them over the edge. Go, you know what? Fuck this. I'm getting this guy to paint my bike. I love this paint job. But in this consumer world, they're so used to that saying, okay, I like that yellow helmet right there. I want that.
Right.
And they're used to be able to just buying that and putting it in their pocket.
Right.
But for me, and I always say, and I have another analogy I'll throw on the ass end of this topic right here. But I always say, you know, it's my job to take what you liked or that paint job and do it justice to the original customer that bought it, but completely redesign it, but give that customer that same kind of feel, even if it might be the same color scheme. But see, what you can do is if you take a red and yellow paint job or a black and silver paint job, they love those colors. And I'm like, well, you know, if we throw the orange stripe in here, it's just going to look like that one that you liked. Is there any other color you think that you're okay with? Because honestly, in that color scheme, you can put any color there and it's going to be fine.
Right.
And they're like, oh, well, I don't know. What do you think? And I'm like, well, here's the deal. I think this, and this color will be setting it off. And even though it mainly is the same exact colors of that bike that you like, this 16th of a line or the 16th of an inch pinstripe is what's going to make it not look like that.
Right.
Now, there are people out there that are completely, they see two colors and they just associate, oh, that's the same paint job as that one. And it's not, like, for instance, my gold bike, right?
Right.
As a customer, which I have to be a little bit of a customer when I'm building a bike for myself, I love Schultz's bike. I told Schultz that at Rock Rally. I was like, you know what, dude, I'm sorry that I had to use the same gold. Unfortunately, there's only so many shades of it, but this is the most appealing gold there is. So I did my best to use what I loved about that, which was the gold and black of the bike, and find other ways to bring other colors in it to where if you really know what you're looking at, you can see they're completely different paint jobs, different bikes, right?
Right.
And I mean, but there's still tons of people out there that would just see the gist of it, the gold and the black wheels, and be like, oh, was that bike on the cover of, you know, Hot Bike?
That's the majority of people, especially even people I know. Like, all of my friends are like, isn't that the unknown stuff?
I mean,
I'm like, tell it to his face. He's
it's
mad
a thing
about
that
it.
sucks, you know, but, you know, at the same time, you know, I'm still I love riding bikes, so I want what I want. I mean, if I didn't paint for a living, all my bikes would be gray because that's my favorite color.
Sure.
But that's not going to do dick for me for paint work to sell.
Right. So, okay, so we've established that, you know, we've established Jace as a talker, right?
Oh yeah,
we've established that.
Talks a
So,
lot.
I found what I lost, so it was just
so it was bouncing around in there.
Yeah.
So when you have a client and you've decided you're going to do a paint job together, and he's wrote the check or slid the cash across the table, are you having conversations to try to get in his head what he likes? I mean, obviously some people don't have that kind of vision, so they just pick it and they're like some people do tattoos.
Exactly.
They don't have an idea. They
So
see
they go in
something
there
on
and
the
they see
wall,
the flash.
pick it and stick it.
Yeah.
You know.
Pick it
So
and stick it.
I'm sure there's guys that come to you and they say, I want that paint job on my bike. So are you using are you kind of interviewing them and bringing out what
exactly to the T? I'm interviewing them, but I'm also trying to distill most people are pretty well aware of knowing, okay, I'm going to get something personalized and custom. So most of them say, I don't want it to be just like this, but this is the direction of feel that I want. And that's probably 80% of the time. There's only a few times where you get that customer who goes, well, I just want that.
Right.
And I'm like, well, to be fair, I can't give you exactly that.
Right. So are you having to talk people out of getting like paint jobs with their dogs and like their kids and stuff like that?
When I first got into the paint game, man, I used to have to do all that crazy shit,
Right.
But I've been doing it long enough to where I've developed my strong points that I'm good at, and I feel like you're going to get the best from me in this world.
Right.
Which is probably not the best thing in the world, but at the same time, there's so many different areas of custom paint that some people are amazing at doing false finishes or faux finishes. Is that what you say?
Sure. Yeah.
So they'll be like, they do this amazing wood grain and marble, and they do it in houses, and then they'll do it on a race car, and it's amazing.
Right.
You ask them to do a skull, and it looks like a child drew it.
Right.
Or say, for instance, you go to a tattoo artist that does color work, and you bring them a black and white, and you're like, well, I just want this, but I want you to do it. I'm like, well, why do you want me to do it?
Right.
Nothing in my portfolio looks like that.
Right. Yeah, so I mean that brings up an interesting point, is that I think that people would assume that with your Samuel Jackson, that maybe even the guy who painted Samuel Jackson and the guy who did the pinstripe and panel work and stuff like that would be two different people altogether. And so the fact that you're mixing those two genres and you're really good at both of them, that kind of blows people away.
There's in the paint game, man, there are some amazingly talented guys that are usually, I think some of the best dudes are like primarily will be an airbrush guy, or they'll primarily be a pinstriper, right?
Sure.
There's probably one guy that I know for a fact is across the board one of my heroes in paint. There's a couple of them that do a lot of, but usually it is that. Now, being a guy that can do the pinstriping, the graphics, the paint work, the buffing, all that stuff from start to finish, even though he does a lot of that part of the job, it's tough. But it's also the reason I've been doing this shit for almost 16, 15 years now. So there was a point in time where I didn't know how to airbrush, so all I did was flames. Like I laid out flames, and then there's a point in time where I had to learn how to use a vinyl cutter to make certain logos. When I used to do a lot of race bikes, that they wanted the Simpson logo, so I had to draw that in a computer and then cut it out with my vinyl cutter. So yeah, I have that skill, but here's the thing. I'm not the best at any of them. I tell people this, I'm not the best. Dude, I can show you some airbrush guys that will fucking make you just slap your face. It's like, what the fuck,
Right.
But I think, without trying to sound arrogant or anything, I think I'm really good at putting all of them together.
Right. Sure.
I'm not the best at any of it, but I think I'm okay at putting them together and making one image. Right. And I think a great paint job has a little bit of everything, or at least my style.
Right.
A little bit of the right pinstriping on it, the right color combination. And one thing that I've always prided myself on is flow. Like, I feel like if you can't look at a bike from every angle and think it's a beautiful picture,
right,
then I think that you failed at that paint job.
Okay.
And sometimes when you're painting bikes, they're, like especially a bagger, I used to get people a lot, they were like, well, why'd you leave the lid solid? And I'm like, well, if you look at this paint job as a whole puzzle, you take one piece off the puzzle and it doesn't look like shit, but you put it all together and you got this masterpiece.
Sure.
And so in that case, sometimes one piece of the bike has to be a solid color.
Sure.
To have to create the flow and to create the big image.
Right.
Instead of like you don't paint a bike like the front fender's its own paint job, the fairing's its own paint job, the tanks then you got a monstrosity of a bike. It's not going to be pleasing to the eye.
Right. Right.
So,
yeah, in some cases, I mean, even though that style, panel styles are very intricate and there's a lot going on, there are certain aspects of the bike that you would leave solid
yeah.
just because it works. You know, in that particular area, less is more. You know, you got to keep it clean and simple.
Yeah, I mean, think about a bagger, right? Think about a big wheel bagger with the long fenders and stuff, right? So you have so much paint real estate, and 9 times out of 10, your rear fender's covered in something. Around the bags are covered in something, and so if you and around the side of the bike has a flow to it that you can wrap to the back of the bike, but
Sure.
on top of the lids never quite has that flow down. It clashes with one side or the other.
Right. Right.
So naturally for me, I've always felt like a solid colored lid just seems to not interfere and conflict with the flow of the paint job.
Right.
Plus, that's usually one of the things that gets kicked the most when people getting on and off the bike. So it's
way easier to touch up.
And I tell and I'll tell them, like, hey, let's. I would try to paint a bike to where the most prone areas to rock chips, scratches are the easier, cheaper color to repair, the less intricate work.
Right.
And still create. I mean, that's the job. That's why it sucks doing what we do sometimes. And there's so much more than just grabbing a box of crayons and coloring a bike. You know what I mean? It's a lot of planning and thought that goes into it.
Well, you hope that long-term customers realize that you're putting that kind of care and thought into your work. That, hey, if your lid does get scratched, it's easy to fix. You know, I've not got 5 layers of pearl on there that will never get right.
Yeah.
Or if the front edge of something that's prone to getting a rock chip, you know, we've put a solid color there that we can touch up in 3 years. So that's the kind of thought that goes into that I think helps create long-term customers, right?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, if you go back to what we first started talking about here, I want people to have a great experience.
Sure.
And if I give them a paint job that is going to be nothing but money out of their pocket, because I get a chip, I don't give a shit about it. I'll fix it in the wintertime or once the bike sells. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Some people, you know, as soon as they get that scratch, as soon as that rock chip happens, it's off. It's off to the painter.
Right.
And then 2 weeks later, here you go. And it sucks to take that guy's money all the time, but some people just have that OCD to do that, you know. But ultimately, I want people to have a great experience of doing business with me.
Sure.
And same thing when it comes, and that's why one thing, you know, when it comes to all the rides and stuff that we do, I like doing that because I can tell people my experiences of going on a ride, why I think this helmet's good, this one's bad, doing your paint job this way is good for this type of riding. Because if you're out on that open road, you're probably going to catch a lot more road chips than you are if you're just riding to the local Harley, you know, bike night or whatever.
Right.
So there's a lot of things that go that go inside with that, and I think that as being an actual guy on a motorcycle who's riding, I feel like I have more to offer than just a painter.
Sure.
You know, and also I've always been one of those guys that's maybe an industry Nazi, I guess. Like, I only like to fuck with people that are in bike stuff.
Right.
I mean, I have a lot of friends that paint bikes and cars and stuff like this, but secretly I'm always like, well, if I was on the outside looking in, I would want to send my money to a biker-owned paint shop.
Sure.
You know, because he's going to take more pride in his work because this is his world. He lives in this world. You know?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point. I think that, you know, you're kind of a purist then. I mean, I'm
so
sure
it's not
there's
Nazi?
No, it's probably a purist.
Okay.
Well,
Yeah,
sounds way more.
You're definitely a purist.
But what winds up happening is you know, there are painters out there that will paint anything, but I hear from a lot of painters that bikes are particularly tough, and even helmets are tougher because they're a small canvas.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's cars out there that the hood is as much real estate as an entire set of tins on a bike.
Exactly.
And you've got to fit, like you said, a cohesive design that works and flows on an entire bike. And a lot of times, your paint area on a bike is very, very small. Mm-hmm. And to try to put together a design that works for the entire bike, and then that's not even including the non-matched helmet that again is you know, not flat art. It's like the shape of a bowling ball, right?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, it's really, really hard to make a design that wraps and flows.
You know what I think about a lot whenever I design paint jobs? Whether it be on the helmet or the bike, I try to envision it because I'm a visual person. So when I see a bike going down the road or another guy riding a bike, and I'm looking at, I'm scanning, I'm looking, and I'm seeing this. I'm like, that looks so cool. You know what I mean? I like that. I can see, I'm riding next to this guy, and I can see a paint job. I'm seeing how he's sitting on it, and I'm envisioning a paint job that's not getting lost in his body.
Right.
It's sculpting him sitting on the bike, so you still get the impact of how cool that paint job is while it's being on the road.
Right.
And then, you know, there's just so much that goes into it. And I guess it goes to when someone really passionately loves what they do, like we talked about earlier. I do love what I do. It's just, you do it for long enough, it becomes a job.
Right.
But now this kind of thought process that was like groundbreaking for me 10 years ago, this is just how I've evolved, you know?
Right, sure.
So I look at helmets the same way. I feel like that's it's got to look cool when it's hanging on the bike, right? So that's where that airbrush is cool.
Yeah.
But it's got to also look cool when you're going down the road. So creating a sense of flow and movement with the helmet in a specific style of paint jobs like a panel can be challenging, but it can also be very rewarding when done correctly.
Yeah, so I've seen the same thing in developing helmets. So what you have to do and to make a helmet popular and get it exciting is you have a helmet that somebody gets it in their hand or it's sitting on a bike's mirror, and it has a lot of intricate, cool little details that makes the helmet, the graphic, the paint job, if you will, very, very exciting when you're up close. When you're going down the road, a paint job on a helmet from the opposite side of the freeway or from 50 feet away could look just like a muddy mess.
Exactly.
And so in a way, you have to have a balance of big pieces of color that stand out and separate from each other in a helmet.
There's two focal points on any paint job, whether it's a bike, a helmet, or anything. There's your across the parking lot, which would be essentially across the highway.
Right.
And that's going to be your graphic style, your color palette, how you laid it out, how you structured that's going to grab their attention. And now when you get close, the details, the airbrush, that purple pinstripe, those things are what holds their attention.
Right.
So me personally, like I like monochromatic airbrush work like the way I do that Sam Jackson, because I don't want you to see that from across the parking lot.
Right.
Even though you kind of can.
Right.
But I don't want it to overshadow the bike. I don't want it, or the paint job or the colors. I want it to be like when you get on, now you're captivated by these smaller details of this deal.
Right.
And so I feel like you get longer attention span of a paint job when you have those two factors. You have what's going to draw them to it and what's going to hold them to it.
Right.
And then as they're walking around, then they're like, man, like every step I take, it looks cool.
Yeah. It's just whether or not you're doing projects. I know some hot rod guys do it. I know filmmakers do it now. You know, it's these little Easter eggs that people like to drop in things.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's
usually a little dick and balls or something.
Yeah. I mean, so it's fun to do those. Play jokes on your friends. It's fun to do those as just little nods to certain people, your customer, you, your family. I worked with somebody one time that in a helmet graphic that was for mass production. You know, it was a helmet graphic. It was a girl that did it, and it was kind of a Beatles Yellow Submarine themed art, if you can imagine what that looked like. Right, Peter Max type stuff. She basically hid all of her kids' names in the graphic.
That's cool.
And it's funny to see a guy riding his motorcycle out somewhere, and he's wearing that helmet, and you walk up to him, and you're like, okay, there's a name, and there's a name, and you've never seen these names in this graphic, but they're there.
I know a lot of painters that do that.
Yeah.
I've never really tapped into that much because I always feel like they would take it the wrong way.
Right.
Like, the helmet that we did that said fucking drunk on the front?
Right, yeah.
We were literally fucking drunk when we did that helmet. And the next day, he got up and goes, man, I don't know if I should have did that on the front of the helmet. And I'm like, dude, it's there. Deal with it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So, but I mean, that's what's cool about that stuff.
Right.
But now that, because that's a close friend of mine, that was a night we were hanging out in the garage painting that helmet.
Right.
Every time he looks at that, he's either going to think about all the times while he wore that helmet on that trip that someone or a conversation spurred up because of that, or he's going to think about that night and how we were fucking drunk in there.
Right.
And he woke up to that.
Well, that's an exclamation point in time. Again, it's a place marker, and those are really cool. I mean, that's a special thing, and you don't want to have to rethink those or go back and change those.
Yeah, and it's good when a customer or a guy I don't know. Sometimes those things can be tough to deal or tough to get to fly, let it fly or whatever.
Sure.
But with him, man, he's the one that got me on the whole new helmet every year thing. So,
Right.
He buys a helmet, he wears it for a year, and at the end of the year, he puts it on a shelf, and that's his
trophy.
I completely got that whole concept from him.
Right.
And now with us painting the helmets, now it has a lot more memory attached to it.
Sure.
And I don't know, I think it's cool, man. But yeah, there's just so much stuff. What I was gonna say a while ago that is kind of complicated, and it's more of me just bitching. Basically, is all it is. I'm super envious of guys that like work for Harley or even maybe a helmet graphic person, because they can sit there for however long it takes to come up with this one really nice design.
Sure.
And then I don't know how much they get paid or whatever, but they slap it on there and then they're good. Yeah. Months over with. I'm sitting here, I got 40 sketches for one job.
Right.
That I can use them on something else, but it drains you creatively sometimes when you have to constantly reinvent yourself.
I think from a design standpoint, that's my opinion, that there's so much nowadays when we're looking at designs, especially in the automotive design side of things,
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about like the shape of cars. Before it was always like an iconic, like one guy that led the team, and he made a car, and it might not be a car for everybody, but what you had was, even if the car 75% of the people didn't like it, there was 10% of the people who couldn't live without it. They would sell their children to buy that car because
Mm-hmm.
it was, the design spoke to them. And now, because of corporate policy and focus groups and things like this, we do designs and we poll a lot of people, and everything that offends somebody as far as a look or a crease or a body line or something, we remove that. And so all of a sudden, our cars look like bars of soap. And every single car looks like a bar of
It
soap.
has no personality.
So we go back to iconic designs. I think they're always led by one person or a small team. And I think it's okay to have polarizing design. I think if you make a design that, everybody says, yeah, that's all right, but nobody goes, holy crap, I've got to have that. I've got to have it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's sad. So I think polarizing is okay. But, corporate America is not good with having some people turned off. They want everything to be acceptable.
They want everything to be mediocre to everybody. They don't want
Well, you have to
something.
water it down to please.
Yeah,
people
they don't
across
want
the
something
board.
that's going
Right.
to be amazing to one person and then
Right.
be total shit to somebody else.
Right, but I personally think that's okay. I mean, if I do something that the majority of people, it's not their thing. But there are some people who absolutely, they can't live without it. I'm okay with that as long as the numbers work out. It can't be your entire product line, but I think that's kind of cool, and I think it goes back to, most things that we hold dear to us later on in life. Most cars, it wasn't the safe design that people were passionate about later on.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the weird and the wild. Sometimes it's the thing that didn't sell very good initially. If you think about, how popular right now that FXRT fairings are.
Yeah.
Those are redhead stepchild for a long time. There's a whole lot of those that were thrown away.
Right.
A lot of them.
What dumbasses! It's like throwing away comics back in the 80s.
Right. So, I think it is tough, and I think having, when you're a design person, even though you're envious of like the HD guy, trust me, there's a giant committee there, and they're all putting the rubber stamp on it, and they're all having to nod, and he's having to get the approval to a million people.
So they probably designed this phenomenal idea, and then it got watered down as it went up the ladder before it got approved.
Yeah, designed by committee.
And then at that point, then I'm happy to be where I'm
Right.
at.
So designed by committee, it's tough, and sometimes it has good results, but often it's just a watered down bar of soap.
For sure. So we'll get close to wrapping this up. So I guess, man, as like anything note happen? I mean, what's
Well, so we're coming out with there's
Can you talk about that yet?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple different things that we're working on. So we're definitely, I don't think it's a giant secret, but we're going to work on what looks like a Ghost Bandit, but it's a modular.
Mm-hmm.
And I think there's a lot of people that are very, very excited about something like that from Simpson. And
see, I just crossed over into that 35 and older crowd.
Right.
So now I'm 35 now, and I'm super pumped about it because no matter how goofy I feel when I flip that visor up, it's so handy.
Right.
It's crazy how handy that shit is.
it's kind of funny, you go back to even the start of when modular helmets became popular, and you ask people why they like them. They're handy, but it's still real hard to put your finger on what it is about them. And certain people, they're easier to put on. Certain people are claustrophobic and they like to be able to open it up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's great to be able to open them up and talk to somebody in traffic that you're riding with. Sometimes it's great to when you get to town or something and you
don't want to get gas and you don't want to take your helmet off.
Yeah, and you flip it open, or you're sitting in traffic or something like that. And so, it's not for everybody, but our modular certain will be a Simpson modular. There will be
I
no
think
mistaking.
the styling will be iconic enough to where it will be cool to have. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
a lot of modulars kind of have a really goofy shape. They don't really
Right.
have that aggressive look that
Right.
Simpson helmets have. So I think the modular will be. Now that I'm in the old guy class, that I think I'll be able to still feel like the young cool guy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. So it's a little bit of the best of the both worlds. And there's other models coming out. There's also so we've been very, very successful with our limited production graphics that were the Subdued
so cool.
and
the gray
Glory.
helmet is so. I know it's not really a graphic, but just that color.
Right.
It's so crazy when you only get certain things in like 2 options of colors
Right.
and one other finish.
Right.
When you throw any color in the mix, you're like, oh,
Right.
I gotta
right.
have it.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. The Gunmetal Outlaw has been very, very good to us,
And I'm a
that's-
Gray fan, so.
And that's not a limited production, I love the Battleship Gray
Oh, yeah.
that we're starting to see on bikes, and we hesitated to match that, and rather decided to go with metallic because we think it matched more bikes. It still
does.
matched the Battleship color, but it had a wider appeal to a lot of other bikes. So, and that's an ongoing color. That's not something that came out as limited production. So the Gunmetal Outlaw continues, and then the Glory and the Subdued, the flag paint jobs.
Mm-hmm.
There are 2 more in that series that will come in colorways, and they're limited to 400 pieces each. And when they're
Nice.
gone, they're gone. No amount of begging is going to get us to bring any more.
Yeah.
And the original one is completely sold out, the black and gray, and we have people begging for more of them. But we made a promise that it would be limited production. We have to hold that promise.
Yeah, I'm just staring at that one right there.
Yeah, there's one down there that we
can I
have
have
one
that?
in the showroom.
Can I
It's
have
pretty
it?
neat. But the next colors
But
are,
I can paint you a matching one if you want.
Absolutely. In fact, I think there's been a couple of those pop up.
Yeah.
Or a spin on the variation. But we have a couple colorways coming that are unique and different, and we'll add to that. And then in total, there'll be 1,600 total flag graphics that are split among 4 colors, and then we're finished with it, or we're on to something else.
That's cool to do. I think that you make it to where people they gotta light that fire in their ass and get something they want when they can, instead of like just passively waiting forever. So I think that's super cool, making it, and then feel like you have a piece of Simpson history, basically.
Sure. Oh, we've got people that are going to have all 4 of them.
Yeah.
They want that on their shelf.
Simpson fanatics. I feel
Right.
like Jace is slowly getting to that point.
Yeah, I am. I mean, I just, like I said, and it's going to be, I think when people hear this and my reasons for buying Simpsons,
Sure.
they'll start to look at their personal
Right.
item as
Right.
that pivotal point in their life of here,
Well,
and here.
Well,
I
I think as the world gets smaller, and we're all attached in one
Yeah.
way or another, I think what people do is brands they associate themselves with, okay,
Exactly.
that becomes your tribe. So
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
you see a guy that rides the same kind of bike, drives the same kind of truck, has the same kind of helmet, and all of a sudden he's like your dude, like you're that's your people. You don't even need to know him, but you kind of have a mindset that's the same. I think it's really, really cool. But I call it like this, like branding is the new tribes, and when I decide to ride a certain X bike or whatever, all of a sudden I'm included in this other group. And I think it's the same way with helmets. I mean, what does having a brand say about you?
Yeah.
What is that when you have a Nikon sitting on the desk here.
Yeah.
Okay. There's lots of guys and Canon makes great cameras. I'm a Nikon guy, you're a Nikon guy.
He's a Nikon.
I'm a Nikon
so
guy.
okay, so we're all there. So it's a part of our tribe, right?
Yeah.
We have this collective experience.
I'm gonna add you to the group later.
Right, exactly. It's like having these imaginary internet friends that get together and.
Well, like you just said, the world gets so small, but maybe the world has gotten so big that this is our primal way of finding our niches or our smaller groups, our smaller tribes within this.
Our way of shrinking it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean you guys both. I mean, you hit on exactly the same thing. I think that is the way of finding, not worrying about us getting just lost in the minutia of everything.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah.
And so we do find. And I don't know what it says about the human condition to say that we're defined by the brands that we embrace, but a lot of times we are.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, my business is based on something that has a brand name attached to it, whether it's the paint I'm using, the products I'm using to apply that paint, or the canvas that it's being done on. It's all a brand.
The shoes I'm wearing, the food I eat, the places I choose to go,
Right.
everything's a
Yeah.
brand.
I mean,
Right.
Yeah.
Instead of, it's almost it's a massive thing that you can get so wrapped up in and get lost, and it's almost like not worth going down the rabbit hole of that. Just be like, the world's fucking crazy. It's
Yeah,
big.
I don't think we have 4 hours to talk about.
Right. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So how long are you gonna be in Texas, man?
So I'm going to be here the rest of the week and head back to Ohio. I'm going to do a really cool show that we've got at Rheingeist Brewery in Cincinnati. I'll be there just hanging out with friends and making kind of social contacts. We don't have a booth there or anything, but Rheingeist is a one-day show from noon till midnight. And it's at a microbrewery that's really cool downtown Cincinnati, and it's just a fantastic collection of bikes. It's an invitational bike meet.
That's cool.
It's really neat. And then I've got that's actually the IMS Cleveland show, so I'm going to be hitting Cleveland and Cincinnati that same weekend.
Time, yeah.
We've got some Simpson aluminum stamp signs being done by a really cool sign company in Ohio called Scioto Signs that are made in America signs. And when I'm going up to do the IMS show on Friday night, I'm going to stop and watch that guy make those signs on this big old school press.
Video of that.
Yeah, do some video of that for Instagram. And so I'll do IMS show on Friday night. Saturday night do the Garage Brewed show, and then it's off to things like Mama Tried, back down here for Giddy Up.
Y'all gonna be in Daytona or any presence out there? Or do y'all
No, what happens for us is our demographic again is typically the younger crowd, and Daytona and Sturgis. While we love those events, we've done them in the past. I've been to them personally. You just get lost in so much.
It's such a big area,
right?
to
It's
cover.
It's just too much.
So I think what we're seeing, whether you're talking about Daytona, Sturgis, Laconia, younger people don't have time to go and take off a week and go do an event. So what I see happening for the younger crowd is I see these weekend events. I see even one-day events like Giddy Up. I mean, people who haven't experienced Giddy Up is a pretty incredible event, and it's one day. And but you still see people who come from California for a one-day event.
Yeah.
And so we're going to probably focus mostly on those.
That's a good idea.
And that I think our audience, it's a little more focused there. There's certainly smaller events, but we're
also
a bigger fish.
if you were stuck in a booth for a week, your enthusiasm is going to go away every day. So come Saturday, the height of the show, you're fucking worn the fuck out.
Right.
By that point.
Yeah, I mean, Sturgis is neat. I mean, I love Sturgis. I probably love to ride in that area without a bunch of people up there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
When it's not going on.
Right.
Yeah.
But we do we do get kind of lost in the shuffle up there. It's just so much going on.
And you're a 3-man group, man. So
Absolutely.
you can't fucking do everything.
Absolutely.
So.
So Born Free will definitely be there. We haven't got the rest of the schedule kind of completely worked out yet. I think we're going to be at Smokeout. I think that's a great show, and we'll certainly be at some others. So, pretty excited about 2018.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, hey, man, Scott, dude, you're a bad motherfucker.
Yeah,
Appreciate
man.
you.
Thanks, guys.
Sitting
Super
down.
interesting conversation.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, man, because we're excited, man. We want you to be the first guy that we open with and create this whole new medium of podcasting, and we can't thank you enough for sitting down and.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, and you guys have been a lot of fun, and it's been good getting to know you guys, and Fast Life Garage puts out some incredible work, and we love to be associated with you guys. So thanks.
Cool. I appreciate it, man. Thanks.
Later, everybody.
All right, so